Welcome back to part 2 of the Iliad of Homer. The story continues. As the gods interfere, heroes rise, and the Trojan War grows even more brutal. If you haven't watched part 1 yet, make sure to check it out first. And if you're ready to continue the journey, sit back, relax, and immerse yourself in one of the greatest epic tales ever told. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next part. Now, let the story continue. This is the Iliad of Homer, Part 2, Book VII, Argument the Single Combat of Hector and Ajax. The battle renewing with double ardor upon the return of Hector, Minerva is under apprehensions for the Greeks. Apollo, seeing her descend from Olympus, joins her near the Scaean gate. They agree to put off the general engagement for that day and incite Hector to challenge the Greeks to a single combat. 9 of the princes accepting the challenge, the lot is cast and falls upon Ajax. These heroes, after several attacks, are parted by the night, the Trojans calling a council. Antenor purposes a delivery of Helen to the Greeks, to which Paris will not consent, but offers to restore them her riches. Priam sends a herald to make this offer, and to demand a truce for burning the dead, the last of which only is agreed to by Agamemnon. When the funerals are performed, the Greeks, pursuant to the advice of Nestor, erect a fortification to protect their fleet and camp, flanked with towers and defended by a ditch and palisades. Neptune testifies his jealousy at this work, but is pacified by a promise from Jupiter. Both armies pass the night in feasting, but Jupiter disheartens the Trojans with thunder and other signs of his wrath. The 23rd day ends with the duel of Hector and Ajax. The next day the truce is agreed. Another is taken up in the funeral rites of the slain, and one more in building the fortification before the ships, so that somewhat about 3 days is employed in this book. The scene lies wholly in the field. So spoke the guardian of the Trojan state, then rushed impetuous through the Scaean gate. Him Paris followed to the dire alarms, both breathing slaughter, both resolved in arms. As when the sailors laboring to the main, that long have heaved the weary or in vain, Jove bids at length the expected gales arise. The gales blow grateful, and the vessel flies. So welcome these to Troy's desiring train. The bands are cheered, the war wakes again. Bold Paris first the work of death begun on great Menestius, a righteous son, sprung from the fair Philomeda's embrace. The pleasing Arn was his native place. Then sunk Ionius to the shades below. Beneath his steely casque he felt a blow full on his neck from Hector's weighty hand, and rolled, with limbs relaxed, along the land. By Glaucus' spear the bold Iphinus bleeds, fixed in the shoulder as he mounts his steeds. Headlong he tumbles, his slack nerves unbound, drop the cold, useless members on the ground. When now Minerva saw her Argive slain, from vast Olympus to the gleaming plain fierce, she descends. Apollo marked her flight, nor shot less swift from Ilion's towery height. Radiant they met beneath the beechen shade, when thus Apollo to the blue-eyed maid, "What cause, O daughter of almighty Jove, thus wings thy progress from the realms above? Once more impetuous dost thou bend thy way, to give to Greece the long divided day? Too much has Troy already felt thy hate. Now breathe thy rage, and hush the stern debate. This day the business of the field suspend. War soon shall kindle in great Ilion bend, since vengeful goddesses confederate join to raise her walls, though built by hands divine." To whom the progeny of Jove replies, "I left for this the counsel of the skies, but who shall bid conflicting hosts forbear? What art shall calm the furious sons of war?" To her the god, "Great Hector's sole insight to dare the boldest Greek to single fight, till Greece, provoked, from all her number show a warrior worthy to be Hector's foe." At this agreed, the heavenly powers withdrew. Sage Helenus their secret counsels knew. Hector, inspired, he sought. To him addressed, thus told the dictates of his sacred breast. "O son of Priam, let thy faithful ear receive my words. Thy friend and brother here. Go forth persuasive, and while engage the warring nations to suspend their rage, then dare the boldest of the hostile train to mortal combat on the listed plain. For not this day shall end thy glorious date. The gods have spoke it, and their voice is fate." He said. The warrior heard the word with joy, then with his spear restrained the youth of Troy, held by the midst athwart. On either hand the squadrons part. The expecting Trojans stand, Great Agamemnon bids the Greeks forbear. They breathe and hush the tumult of the war. The Athenian maid and glorious god a day, with silent joy the settling host survey. In form of vultures, on the beach's height, they sit concealed and wait the future fight. The thronging troops obscure the dusky fields, horrid with bristling spears and gleaming shields. As when a general darkness veils amain, soft zephyr curling the wide watery plain, the waves scarce heave, the face of ocean sleeps, and a still horror saddens all the deeps. Thus in thick order settling wide around, at length composed they sit and shade the ground. Great Hector first amidst both armies broke the solemn silence, and their powers bespoke. Hear, all ye Trojan, all ye Grecian bands, what my soul prompts and what some god commands. Great Jove, a verse our warfare compose, o'erwhelms the nations with new toils and woes. War with fiercer tide once more returns, till Ilion falls or till yon navy burns. You then, O princes of the Greeks, appear. 'Tis Hector speaks and calls the gods to hear. From all your troops select the boldest knight, and him, the boldest, Hector dares to fight. Here if I fall, by chance of battle slain, be as my spoil and as these arms remain. But let my body, to my friends returned, by Trojan hands and Trojan flames be burned. And if Apollo, in whose aid I trust, shall stretch your daring champion in the dust, if mine the glory to despoil the foe, on Phoebus' temple I'll his arms bestow, the breathless carcass to your navy sent. Greece on the shore shall raise a monument, which when some future mariner surveys, washed by broad Hellespont's resounding seas, thus shall he say, a valiant Greek lies there by Hector slain, the mighty man of war. The stone shall tell your vanquished hero's name, and distant ages learn the victor's fame. This fierce defiance Greece astonished heard, blushed to refuse, and to accept it feared. Stern Menelaus first the silence broke, and, inly groaning, thus opprobrious spoke. Women of Greece, O scandal of your race, whose coward souls your manly form disgrace, how great the shame, when every age shall know that not a Grecian met this noble foe. Go, then, resolve to earth, from whence ye grew, a heartless, spiritless, inglorious crew. Be what ye seem, unanimated clay. Myself will dare the danger of the day. 'Tis man's bold task the generous strife to try, but in the hands of God is victory. These words scarce spoke, with generous art oppressed, his manly limbs in azure arms he dressed. That day, Atrides, a superior hand had stretched thee breathless on the hostile strand, but all at once, thy fury compose, the kings of Greece, an awful band, arose. Even he their chief, great Agamemnon, pressed thy daring hand, and this advice addressed, Whither, O Menelaus, wouldst thou run, and tempt a fate which prudence bids thee shun? Grieve though thou art, forbear the rash design. Great Hector's arm is mightier far than thine. Even fierce Achilles learned his force to fear, and trembling met this dreadful son of war. Sit thou secure amidst thy social band. Greece in our cause shall arm some powerful hand. The mightiest warrior the Achaean name, though bold and burning with desire fame, content the doubtful honor might forego. So great the danger, and so brave the foe. He said, and turned his brother's vengeful mind. He stooped to reason, and his rage resigned, no longer bent to rush on certain harms. His joyful friends unbrace his azure arms. He from whose lips divine persuasion flows, grave Nestor, then in graceful act arose. Thus to the kings he spoke, What grief, what shame attend on Greece, and all the Grecian name! How shall, alas, her hoary heroes mourn their sons degenerate, and their race a scorn? What tears shall down thy silvery bier be rolled? O Peleus, old in arms, in wisdom old! Once with what joy the generous prince would hear of every chief who fought this glorious war, participate their fame, and please inquire each name, each action, and each hero's sire. Gods! Should he see our warriors trembling stand, and trembling all before one hostile hand, how would he lift his aged arms on high, lamenting glorious Greece, and beg to die? Oh, would all the immortal powers above, Minerva, Phoebus, and almighty Jove, years might again roll back, my youth renew, and give this arm the spring which once it knew when fierce in war. Where Jordan's waters fall, I led my troops to Phe's trembling wall, and with the Arcadian spears my prowess tried. Where Celadon rolls down his rapid tide, there were Ithalian bravest in the field, proud Areithus' dreadful arms to wield. Great Areithus, known from shore to shore by the huge, knotted, iron mace he bore. No lance he shook, nor bent the twanging bow, but broke with this the battle of the foe. Him not by manly force Lycurgus slew, whose guileful javelin from the thicket flew. Deep in a winding way his breast assailed, nor aught the warrior's thundering mace availed. Supine he fell. Those arms which Mars before had given the vanquished, now the victor bore. But when old age had dimmed Lycurgus' eyes, to a Ruthalion he consigned the prize. Furious with this he crushed our levelled bands, and dared the trial of the strongest hands. Nor could the strongest hands his fury stay. All saw and feared his huge tempestuous way, till I, the youngest of the host, appeared, and youngest, met whom all our army feared. I fought the chief, my arms Minerva crowned. Prone fell the giant o'er a length of ground. What then I was? O'er your Nestor now. Not Hector's self should want an equal foe. But, warriors, you that youthful vigor boast, the flower of Greece, the examples of our host, sprung from such fathers, who such numbers sway, can you stand trembling and desert the day? His warm reproofs the listening kings inflame, and 9, the noblest of the Grecian name, up started fierce. But far before the rest the king of men advanced his dauntless breast. Then bold Tydides, great in arms, appeared, and next his bulk gigantic Ajax reared. Oileus followed. Idomon was there, and Marion, dreadful as the god of war. With these Eurypylus and Thoas stand, and wise Ulysses close a daring band. All these, alike inspired with noble rage, demand to fight, to whom the Pylian sage, lest thirst of glory your brave souls divide, what chief shall combat, let the god decide. Whom heaven shall choose, be as a chance to raise his country's fame, his own immortal praise. The lots produced, each hero signs his own. Then in the general's helm the fates are thrown, the people pray, with lifted eyes and hands, and vows like these ascend from all the bands. Grant, thou almighty, in whose hand is fate, a worthy champion for the Grecian state. This task let Ajax or Tydides prove, or he, the king of kings, beloved by Jove. Old Nestor shook the cask, by heaven inspired, leaped forth the lot of every Greek desired. This from the right to left the herald bears, held out in order to Grecian peers. Each to his rival yields a mark unknown, till godlike Ajax finds a lot his own, surveys the inscription with rejoicing eyes, then casts before him, and with transport cries, "Warriors, I claim the lot, and armed with joy, be mine the conquest of this chief of Troy. Now while my brightest arms my limbs invest, to Saturn's son be all your vows addressed. But pray in secret, lest a foe should hear, and deem your prayers a mean effect of fear." Said I, in secret? No, your vows declare in such a voice as fills the earth and air. Lives there a chief whom Ajax ought to dread? Ajax, in all the toils of battle bred. From warlike Salamis I drew my birth, and born to combats, fear no force on earth. He said, the troops with elevated eyes implore the god whose thunder rend the skies. O father of mankind, superior lord, on lofty Ida's holy hill adored, who in the highest heaven has fixed thy throne, supreme of gods, unbounded and alone, grant thou that Telamon may bear away the praise and conquest of this doubtful day. Or, if illustrious Hector be thy care, that both may claim it, and that both may share. Now Ajax braced his dazzling armor on. Sheathed in bright steel the giant warrior shone. He moves to combat with majestic pace. So stalks in arms the grisly god of Thrace, when Jove to punish faithless men prepares, and gives whole nations to the waste of wars. Thus marched the chief, tremendous as a god. Grimly he smiled. Earth trembled as he strode, his massy javelin quivering in his hand. He stood, the bulwark of the Grecian band. Through every Argive heart new transport ran. All Troy stood trembling at the mighty man. Even Hector paused, and with new doubt oppressed, felt his great heart suspended in his breast. 'Twas vain to seek retreat, and vain to fear. Himself had challenged, and the foe drew near. Stern Telamon behind his ample shield, as from a brazen tower, o'erlooped the field. Huge was its orb, with 7 thick folds o'ercast of tough bull hides, of solid brass elast, the work of Tychius, who in highly dwelled and in all art of armory excelled. This Ajax bore before his manly breast, and threatening, thus his adverse chief addressed, "Hector, approach my arm, and singly know what strength thou hast, and what the Grecian foe. Achilles shuns the fight, yet some there are not void of soul and not unskilled in war. Let him, unactive on the sea-beat shore, indulge his wrath, and aid our arms no more. Whole troops of heroes Greece has yet to boast, and sends he one, a sample of her host. Such as I am, I come to prove thy might. No more, be sudden and begin the fight. O son of Telamon, thy country's pride. To Ajax thus the Trojan prince replied, Me, as a boy or woman, wouldst thou fright, new to the field, and trembling at the fight? Thou meet'st a chief deserving of thy arms, to combat born and bred amidst alarms. I know to shift my ground, remount the car, turn charge, and answer every call of war. To right, to left, the dexterous lance I wield, and bear thick battle on my sounding shield. But open be our fight, and bold each blow. I steal no conquest from a noble foe. He said, and rising, high above the field whirled the long lance against the sevenfold shield. Full on the brass descending from above, through 6 bull hides the furious weapon drove, till in the 7th it fixed. Then Ajax through Hector's shield a forceful javelin flew. His corslet enters, and his garment rends, and glancing downwards near his flank descends. The wary Trojan shrinks, and bending low beneath his buckler, disappoints the blow. From their bored shields the chiefs their javelins drew, then close impetuous, and the charge renew. Fierce as a mountain lion's bathed in blood or foaming boars, the terror of the wood. At Ajax, Hector his long lance extends, the blunted point against the buckler bends. But Ajax, watchful as his foe drew near, drove through the Trojan targe a knotty spear. It reached his neck, with matchless strength impelled, spouts the black gore, and dims his shining shield. Yet ceased not Hector thus, but stooping down, in his strong hand upheaved a flinty stone, black craggy, vast. To this his force he bends. Full on the brazen boss the stone descends. The hollow brass resounded with the shock. Then Ajax seized a fragment of rock, applied each nerve, and swinging round on high, with force tempestuous, let the ruin fly. The huge stone thundering through his buckler broke. His slackened knees received the numbing stroke. Great Hector falls extended on the field, his bulk supporting on the shattered shield. Nor wanted heavenly aid. Apollo's might confirm the sinews, and restore to fight. And now both heroes their broad falchions drew, in flaming circles round their heads they flew. But then by herald's voice the word was given. The sacred ministers of earth and heaven, divine Talthybius, whom the Greeks employ, and sage Idaeus on the part of Troy, between the sword their peaceful scepters reared. And first Idaeus' awful voice was heard. Hector and Ajax, separated by the herald's forebear, my sons, your further force approve, both dear to men and both beloved of Jove. To either host your matchless worth is known, each sounds your praise, and war is all your own. But now the night extends her awful shade, the goddess parts you, be the night obeyed. To whom great Ajax's high soul expressed, O sage, to Hector be these words addressed. Let him, who first provoked our chiefs to fight, let him demand the sanction of the night. If first he asked it, I content obey, and cease the strife when Hector shows away. O first of Greeks, his noble foe rejoined, whom heaven adorns, superior to thy kind, with strength of body and with worth of mind. Now martial law commands us to forbear. Hereafter we shall meet in glorious war. Some future day shall lengthen out the strife, and let the gods decide of death or life. Since then the night extends her gloomy shade, and heaven enjoins it be the night obeyed. Return, brave Ajax, to thy Grecian friends, enjoy the nations whom thy arm defends, as I shall glad each chief and Trojan wife, who wearies heaven with vows for Hector's life. But let us on this memorable day exchange some gift, that Greece and Troy may say, not hate, but glory, made these chiefs contend, and each brave foe was in his soul a friend. With that, a sword with stars of silver graced, the baldric studded, and the sheath enchased, he gave the Greek. The generous Greek bestowed a radiant belt that rich with purple glowed. Then with majestic grace they quit the plain. This seeks the Grecian, that the Phrygian train. The Trojan bands returning Hector wait, and hail with joy the champion of their state. Escaped great Ajax. They survey him round, alive, unarmed and vigorous from his wound. To Troy's high gates the godlike man, they bear their present triumph, as their late despair. But Ajax, glorying in his hardy deed, the well-armed Greeks to Agamemnon lead. A steer for sacrifice the king designed, of full 5 years and of the nobler kind. The victim falls. They strip the smoking hide. The beast they quarter and the joints divide. Then spread the tables. The repast prepare. Each takes a seat and each receives a share. The king himself an honorary sign. Before great Ajax placed a mighty chine. When now the rage of hunger was removed, Nestor, in each persuasive art approved, the sage whose counsels long had swayed the rest, in words like these his prudent thought expressed, "How dear, O kings, this fatal day is cost! What Greeks are perished, what a people lost! What tides of blood have drenched commanders shore! What crowds of heroes sunk, to rise no more! Then hear me, chief, nor let the morrow's light awake thy squadrons to new toils of fight. Some space at least permit the war to breathe, while we to flames our slaughtered friend bequeath. From the red field their scattered bodies bear, and nigh the fleet a funeral structure rear. So decent urns their snowy bones may keep, and pious children o'er their ashes weep. Here, where on one promiscuous pile they blaze, high o'er them all a general tomb be raised. Next, to secure our camp and naval powers, raise an embattled wall with lofty towers. From space to space be ample gates around, for passing chariots, and a trench profound. So Greece to combat shall in safety go, nor fear the fierce incursions of the foe. 'Twas thus the sage his wholesome counsel moved. The sceptred kings of Greece his words approved. Meanwhile, convened at Priam's palace gate, the Trojan peers in nightly council sate, a senate void of order, as of choice. Their hearts were fearful and confused their voice. Antenor, rising, thus demands their ear, "Ye Trojans, Dardans, and auxiliars, hear! 'Tis heaven the counsel of my breast inspires, and I but move what every god requires. Let Sparta's treasures be this hour restored, and Argive Helen own her ancient lord. The ties of faith, the sworn alliance broke, our impious battles the just gods provoke. As this advice ye practice or reject, so hope success or dread the dire effect." The senior spoke and sate, to whom replied the graceful husband of the Spartan bride. "Cold counsels, Trojan, may become thy years, but sound ungrateful in a warrior's ears. Old man, if void of fallacy or art, thy words express the purpose of thy heart. Thou, in thy time, more sound advice hast given, but wisdom has its date, assigned by heaven. Then hear me, princes of the Trojan name. Their treasures I'll restore, but not the dame. My treasures, too, for peace I will resign, but be this bright possession ever mine." 'Twas then, the growing discord to compose, slow from his seat the reverend Priam rose. His godlike aspect deep attention drew. He paused, and these specific words ensue: "Ye Trojans, Dardans, and auxiliar bands, now take refreshment as the hour demands. Guard well the walls, relieve the watch of night, till the new sun restores the cheerful light. Then shall our herald, to the Atrides sent, before their ships proclaim my son's intent. Next let a truce be asked, that Troy may burn her slaughtered heroes and their bones inurn. That done, once more the fate of war be tried, and whose the conquest, mighty Jove decide." The monarch spoke. The warriors snatched with haste, each at his post in arms. A short repast. Soon as the rosy morn had waked the day, to the black ships Idaeus bent his way. There, to the sons of Mars in council found, he raised his voice. The host stood listening round. "Ye sons of Atreus, and ye Greeks, give ear. The words of Troy, and Troy's great monarch, hear. Please may ye hear. So heaven succeed my prayers. What Paris, author of the war, declares. The spoils and treasures he to Ilion bore, oh, had he perished ere they touched our shore. He proffers injured Greece, with large increase of added Trojan wealth to buy the peace. But to restore the beauteous bride again, this Greece demands, and Troy requests in vain. Next, O ye chiefs, we ask a truce to burn our slaughtered heroes, and their bones inurn. That done, once more the fate of war be tried, and whose the conquest, mighty Jove decide." The Greeks gave ear, but none the silence broke. At length Tydides rose and rising spoke. "Oh, take not, friends, defrauded of your fame, their proffered wealth, nor even the Spartan dame. Let conquest make them ours. Fate shakes their wall, and Troy already totters to her fall. The admiring chiefs, and all the Grecian name, with general shouts returned him loud acclaim. Then thus the King of Kings rejects the peace. Herald, in him thou hear'st the voice of Greece for what remains. Let funeral flames be fed with heroes' core. I war not with the dead. Go search your slaughtered chiefs on yonder plain, and gratify the manes of the slain. Be witness, Jove, whose thunder rolls on high. He said, and reared his scepter to sky. To sacred Troy, where all her princes lay to wait the event, the herald bent his way. He came, and standing in the midst, explained the peace rejected, but the truce obtained. Straight to their several cares the Trojans move. Some searched the plains, some fell to sounding grove. Nor less the Greeks, descending on the shore, hewed the green forest and the bodies bore. And now from forth the chambers of the main, to shed his sacred light on earth again, arose the golden chariot of the day, and tipped the mountains with a purple ray. In mingled throngs the Greek and Trojan train through heaps of carnage searched the mournful plain. Scarce could a friend his slaughtered friend explore, with dust dishonored and deformed with gore. The wounds they washed, their pious tears they shed, and laid along their cars, deplored the dead. Sage Priam checked their grief. With silent haste the bodies decent on the piles were placed. With melting hearts the cold remains they burned, and, sadly slow, to sacred Troy returned. Nor less the Greeks their pious sorrows shed, and decent on the pile disposed the dead. The cold remains consumed with equal care, and slowly, sadly, to their fleet repair. Now, ere the morn had streaked with reddening light the doubtful confines of the day and night, about the dying flames the Greeks appeared, and round the pile a general tomb they reared. Then, to secure the camp and naval powers, they raised embattled walls with lofty towers. From space to space were ample gates around, for passing chariots, and a trench were found a large extent. And deep in earth below, strong piles infixed stood adverse to the foe. So toiled the Greeks. Meanwhile the gods above, in shining circle round their father Jove, amazed beheld the wondrous works of man. Then he, whose trident shakes the earth, began, What mortals henceforth shall our power adore, our fanes frequent, our oracles implore? If the proud Grecians thus successful boast their rising bulwarks on the sea-beat coast, see the long walls extending to main, no god consulted, and no victim slain. Their fame shall fill the world's remotest ends, wide as the morn her golden beam extends. While old Laomedon's divine abodes, those radiant structures raised by laboring gods, shall, raised and lost, in long oblivion sleep. Thus spoke the hoary monarch of the deep. The almighty thunder with a frown replies, that clouds the world and blackens half the skies. Strong god of ocean, thou, whose rage can make the solid earth's eternal basis shake, what cause of fear from mortal works could move the meanest subject of our realms above? Where'er the sun's refulgent rays are cast, thy power is honored and thy fame shall last. But yon proud work no future age shall view, no trace remain where once the glory grew. The sapped foundations by thy force shall fall, and whelm beneath the waves, drop the huge wall. Vast drifts of sand shall change the former shore. The ruin vanished, and the name no more. Thus they in heaven, while, o'er the Grecian train, the rolling sun descending to main beheld the finished work. Their bulls they slew, back from the tents the savory vapor flew. And now the fleet, arrived from Lemnos strands, with Bacchus' blessings cheered the generous bands. Of fragrant wines the rich Euneus sent 1,000 measures to the royal tent. Euneus, whom Hypsipyle of your Jason, shepherd of his people, bore. The rest they purchased at their proper cost, and while the plenteous freight supplied the host, each in exchange proportioned treasures gave, some brass or iron, some an ox or slave. All night they feast, the Greek and Trojan powers, those on the fields and these within their towers. But Jove averse the signs of wrath displayed, and shot red lightnings through the gloomy shade. Humbled they stood, pale horror seized on all, while the deep thunder shook the aerial hall. Each poured to Jove before the bowl was crowned, and large libations drenched the thirsty ground. Then late, refreshed with sleep from toils of fight, enjoyed the balmy blessings of the night. Greek amphora, wine vessels. Book VIII, Argument, the second battle, and the distress of the Greeks. Jupiter assembles a council of the deities, and threatens them with the pains of Tartarus if they assist either side. Minerva only obtains of him that she may direct the Greeks by her counsels. The armies join battle. Jupiter on Mount Ida weighs and balances the fates of both, and affrights the Greeks with his thunders and lightnings. Nestor alone continues in the field in great danger. Dion relieves him, whose exploits and those of Hector are excellently described. Juno endeavored to animate Neptune to the assistance of the Greeks, but in vain. The axe of Teucer, who is at length wounded by Hector and carried off. Juno and Minerva prepare to aid the Grecians, but are restrained by Iris, sent from Jupiter. The night puts an end to the battle. Hector continues in the field, the Greeks being driven to their fortifications before the ships, and gives orders to keep the watch all night in the camp, to prevent the enemy from re-embarking and escaping by flight. They kindle fires through all the fields and pass the night under arms. The time of 27 days is employed from the opening of the poem to the end of this book. The scene here, except of the celestial machines, lies in the field towards the seashore. Aurora now, fair daughter of the dawn, sprinkled with rosy light the dewy lawn, when Jove convened the scent of the skies, where high Olympus' cloudy tops arise, the sire of gods his awful silence broke, the heavens attentive trembled as he spoke. Celestial states, immortal gods, give ear, hear our decree, and reverence what ye hear. The fixed decree which not all heaven can move, thou, fate, fulfill it, and ye powers approve. What god but enters yon forbidden field, who yields assistance, or but wills to yield, back to the skies with shame, he shall be driven, gashed with dishonest wounds, the scorn of heaven, or far, oh far, from steep Olympus thrown, low in the dark Tartarian gulf shall groan, with burning chains fixed of brazen floors, and locked by hell's inexorable doors, as deep beneath the infernal center hurled, as from that center to the ethereal world. Let him who tempts me dread those dire abodes, and know, the Almighty is the God of gods. League all your forces, and ye powers above, join all, and try the omnipotence of Jove. Let down our gold and everlasting chain, whose strong embrace holds heaven and earth, and main strive all, of mortal and immortal birth, to drag, by this, the thunder down to earth. Ye strive in vain. If I but stretch this hand, I heave the gods, the ocean, and the land. I fix the chain to great Olympus' height, and the vast world hangs trembling in my sight. For such I reign, unbounded and above, and such are men and gods, compared to Jove. The Almighty spoke, nor durst the powers reply. A reverent horror silenced all the sky. Trembling they stood before their sovereign's look. At length, as best beloved, the power of wisdom spoke. O first and greatest! God, by gods adored, we own thy might, our Father and our Lord. But, permit to pity human state. If not to help, at least lament their fate. From fields forbidden we submiss refrain. With arms unaiding mourn our Argives slain. Yet grant my counsel still their breasts may move, or all must perish in the wrath of Jove. The cloud-compelling god her suit approved, and smiled superior on his best beloved, then called his coursers, and his chariot took. The steadfast firmament beneath them shook. Wrapped by the ethereal steeds the chariot rolled. Brass were their hoofs, their curling manes of gold. Of heaven's undrossy gold the god's array, refulgent, flashed in tolerable day. High on the throne he shines. His coursers fly between extended earth and starry sky. But when Ida's topmost height he came, fair nurse of fountains in a savage game, where o'er her pointed summits proudly raised, his fame breathed odors, and his altar blazed. There, from his radiant car, the sacred sire of gods and men released the steeds of fire. Blue ambient mist the immortal steeds embraced. High on a cloudy point his seat he placed. Thence as broad-eyed the subject world surveys the town in tents and navigable seas. Now had the Grecians snatched his short repast, and buckled on their shining arms with haste. Troy roused as soon, for on this dreadful day the fate of fathers, wives, and infants lay. The gates unfolding pour forth all their train. Squadrons on squadrons cloud the dusky plain. Men, steed, and chariot shake the trembling ground. The tumult thickens, and the skies resound. And now with shouts the shocking armies close. To lances, shields to shield oppose. Host against host with shadowy legends drew. The sounding darts and iron tempest flew. Victors and vanquished join promiscuous cries. Triumphant shouts and dying groans arise. With streaming blood the slippery fields are dyed, and slaughtered heroes swell the dreadful tide. Long as the morning beams, increasing bright, o'er heaven's clear azure spread the sacred light. Calm mutual death the fate of war confounds, each adverse battle gore with equal wounds. But when the sun the height of heaven ascends, the sire of gods his golden scales suspends with equal hand. In these explore the fate of Greece and Troy, and poise the mighty weight. Pressed with its load, the Grecian balance lies low sunk on earth. The Trojan strikes the skies. Then Jove from Ida's top his horrors spreads. The clouds burst dreadful o'er the Grecian heads. Thick lightnings flash. The muttering thunder rolls. Their strength he withers and unmans their souls. Before his wrath the trembling hosts retire. The gods in terrors and the skies on fire. Nor great Thymineus that sight could bear, nor each stern Ajax, thunderbolts of war. Nor he, the king of war, the alarm sustained Nestor alone, amidst the storm remained. Unwilling he remained, for Paris' dart had pierced his courser in a mortal part. Fixed in the forehead, where the springy mane curled o'er brow, it stunned him to the brain. Mad with his anguish, he begins to rear, paw with his hoofs aloft, and lash the air. Scarce had his falchion cut the reins, and freed the encumbered chariot from the dying steed, when dreadful Hector, thundering through the war, poured the tumult on his whirling car. That day had stretched beneath his matchless hand the hoary monarch of the Pylian band, but Dian beheld. From forth the crowd he rushed, and on Ulysses called aloud. Whither, oh, whither does Ulysses run? Oh, flight unworthy great Laertes' son. Mixed with the vulgar shall thy fate be found. Pierced in the back, a vile, dishonest wound? Oh, turn and save from Hector's direful rage the glory of the Greeks, the Pylian sage. His fruitless words are lost unheard in air. Ulysses seeks the ships and shelters there. But bold Tydides to the rescue goes, a single warrior amidst a host of foes. Before the coursers with sudden spring he leaped, and anxious thus bespoke the king. Great perils, father, wait the unequal fight. These younger champions will oppress thy might. Thy veins no more with ancient vigor glow. Weak is thy servant, and thy coursers slow. Then haste, ascend my seat, and from the car observe the steeds atross, renowned in war. Practice alike to turn, to stop, to chase, to dare the fight or urge the rapid race. These late obeyed Aeneas' guiding rein. Leave out thy chariot to our faithful train. With these against yon Trojans will we go, nor shall great Hector want an equal foe. Fierce as he is, even he may learn fear the thirsty fury of my flying spear. Thus said the chief, and Nestor, skilled in war, approves his counsel and ascends the car. The steeds he left, their trusty servant hold. Eurymedon and Sthenelus the bold. The reverend charioteer directs the course, and strains his aged arm to lash the horse. Hector they face, unknowing how to fear. Fierce he drove on. Tydides whirled his spear. The spear with erring haste mistook its way, but plunged in Aeniopius' bosom lay. His opening hand in death forsakes the rein. The steeds fly back. He falls and spurns the plain. Great Hector sorrows for his servant killed, yet unrevenged permits to press the field. Till, to supply his place and rule the car, rose Archeptolemus, the fierce in war. And now had death and horror covered all like timorous flocks the Trojans in their wall enclosed had bled. But Jove with awful sound rolled the big thunder o'er the vast profound. Full in Tydides face the lightning flew. The ground before him flamed with sulphur blue. The quivering steeds fell prostrate at the sight, and Nestor's trembling hand confessed his fright. He dropped the reins, and, shook with sacred dread, thus turning, warned the intrepid Dian, O chief! To, daring thy friend's defense, retire advised, and urge the chariot hence. This day, averse, the sovereign of the skies assists great Hector, and our palm denies. Some other son may see the happier hour, when Greece shall conquer by his heavenly power. 'Tis not in man his fixed decree to move. The great will glory to submit to Jove. O reverend prince, Tydides thus replies, thy years are awful, and thy words are wise. But what grief! Should haughty Hector boast, I fled inglorious to the guarded coast. Before that dire disgrace shall blast my fame, o'erwhelm me, earth, and hide a warrior's shame. To whom Gerenian Nestor thus replied, Gods, can thy courage fear the Phrygians' pride? Hector may vaunt, but who shall heed the boast? Not those who felt thy arm, the Dardan host, nor Troy, yet bleeding in her heroes lost. Not even a Phrygian dame, who dreads a sword that laid in dust her loved, lamented lord. He said in hasty, O'er the gasping throng drives the swift steeds. The chariot smokes along. The shouts of Trojans thicken the wind. The storm of hissing javelins pours behind. Then with a voice that shakes the solid skies, please, Hector braves a warrior as he flies. Go, mighty hero, graced above the rest in seats of council and the sumptuous feast. Now hope no more those honors from thy train. Go less than woman, in the form of man, to scale our walls, to wrap our towers in flames, to lead in exile the fair Phrygian dames, thy once proud hopes. Presumptuous prince, are fled, this arm shall reach thy heart and stretch thee dead. Now fears dissuade him, and now hopes invite, to stop his coursers and to stand the fight. Thrice turned the chief, and thrice imperial Jove on Ida's summits thunder from above. Great Hector heard. He saw the flashing light, the sign of conquest, and thus urged the fight. Here, every Trojan, Lycian, Dardan band, all famed in war and dreadful hand to hand. Be mindful of the reeds your arms have won, your great forefathers' glories and your own. Heard ye the voice of Jove? Success and fame await on Troy, on Greece eternal shame. In vain they skulk behind their boasted wall, weak bulwarks, destined by this arm to fall. High o'er their slighted trench our steeds shall bound, and pass victorious o'er the levelled mound. Soon as before yon hollow ships we stand, fight each with flames and toss the blazing brand, till their proud navy wrapped in smoke and fires, all Greece, encompassed in one blaze expires. Furious, he said, then bending o'er the yoke, encouraged his proud steeds, while thus he spoke. Now, Xanthus, Thonlampus, urge the chase, and thou, Pot Argus, prove thy generous race. Be fleet, be fearless, this important day, and all your master's well-spent care repay. For this high-fed in plenteous stalls ye stand, served with pure wheat and by a princess' hand. For this my spouse of great Aetion's line, so oft has steeped the strengthening grain in wine. Now swift pursue, now thunder uncontrolled. Give me to seize rich Nestor's shield of gold. From Tydeus' shoulders strip the costly load, Vulcanian arms, the labor of a god. These if we gain, then victory, ye powers. This night, this glorious night, the fleet is ours. That heard, deep anguish stung Saturnia's soul. She shook her throne, that shook the starry pole, and thus a Neptune. Thou, whose force can make the steadfast earth from her foundations shake, sayest thou the Greeks by fate's unjust oppress, nor swells thy heart in that immortal breast? Yet eke ye Helicè, thy power obey, and gifts unceasing on thine altars lay. Would all the deities of Greece combine, in vain the gloomy thunder might repine. So should he sit, with scarce a god to friend, and see his Trojans to the shades descend. Such be the scene from his Idaean bower, ungrateful prospect to the sullen power. Neptune with wrath reject the rash design. What rage, what madness, furious queen, is thine? I war not with the highest. All above submit, and tremble at the hand of Jove. Now godlike Hector, to whose matchless might Jove gave the glory of the destined fight, squadrons on squadrons drives, and fills the fields with close-ranged chariots and with thickened shields. Where the deep trench in length extended lay, compacted troops stand wedged in firm array. A dreadful front, they shake the brands, and threat with long-destroying flames the hostile fleet. The king of men, by Juno self-inspired, toiled to the tents and all his army fired. Swift as he moved, he lifted in his hand his purple robe, bright ensign of command. High on the midmost bark the king appeared. There, from Ulysses' deck, his voice was heard. To Ajax and Achilles reached the sound, whose distant ships the guarded navy bound. O Argives, shame of human race, he cried. The hollow vessels to his voice replied. Where now are all your glorious boasts of your hasty triumphs on the Lemnian shore? Each fearless hero dares 100 foes, while the feast lasts, and while the goblet flows. But who to meet one martial man is found, when the fight rages and the flames surround? O mighty Jove, O sire of the distressed, was ever king like me oppressed? With power immense, with justice armed in vain, my glory ravished and my people slain. To thee my vows were breathed from every shore. What altar smoked not with our victims' gore? With fat of bulls I fed the constant flame, and asked destruction to the Trojan name. Now, gracious God, far humble our demand. Give these at least escape from Hector's hand, and save the relics of the Grecian land. Thus prayed the king, and heaven's great father heard his vows, in bitterness of soul preferred. The wrath appeased, by happy signs declares, and gives the people to their monarch's prayers. His eagle, sacred bird of heaven, he sent, a fawn his talons trust, divine portent. High o'er the wondering host he soared above, who paid their vows to Panamphian Jove. Then let the prey before his altar fall. The Greeks beheld, and transport seize on all. Encouraged by the sign, the troops revive, and fierce on Troy with double fury drive. Tydides first, of all the Grecian force, o'er the broad ditch impelled his foaming horse. Pierced the deep ranks, their strongest battle tore, and dyed his javelin red with Trojan gore. Young Agelos, Phradmon was his sire, with flying coursers shunned his dreadful ire. Struck through the back, the Phrygian fell oppressed. The dart drove on and issued at his breast. Headlong he quits the car, his arms resound, his ponderous buckler thunders on the ground. Forth rush a tide of Greeks, the passage freed. The Atridae first, the Ajaces next succeed. Marians, like Mars in arms renowned, and godlike Idaman, now pass the mound. Evamon's son next issues to the foe, and last young Teucer with his bended bow. Secure behind the Telamonian shield, the skillful archer wide surveyed the field. With every shaft some hostile victim slew, then close beneath the sevenfold o'er withdrew. The conscious infant so, when fear alarms, retires for safety to the mother's arms. Thus Ajax guards his brother in the field, moves as he moves, and turns a shining shield. Who first by Teucer's mortal arrows bled. Orsilochus, then fell Ormenus dead. The godlike Lycophon next pressed the plain, with Chromius, Dator, Ophelestes slain. Bold Hamopaean breathless sunk to ground. The bloody pile great Melanippus crowned. Heaps fell on heaps, sad trophies of his art, a Trojan ghost attending every dart. Great Agamemnon views with joyful eye the ranks grow thinner as his arrows fly. O youth forever dear, the monarch cried. Thus, always thus, thy early worth be tried. Thy brave example shall retrieve our host, thy country's savior and thy father's boast. Sprung from an alien's bed thy sire to grace, the vigorous offspring of stolen embrace. Proud of his boy, he owned a generous flame, and the brave son repays his cares with fame. Now hear a monarch's vow. If heaven's high powers give me to raise Troy's long-defended towers, wherever treasures Greece for me design, the next rich honorary gift be thine. Some golden tripod or distinguished car, with coursers dreadful in the ranks of war, or some fair captive whom thy eyes approve, shall recompense the warrior's toils with love. To this the chief, with praise the rest inspire, nor urge a soul already filled with fire. What strength I have, be now in battle tried, till every shaft in Phrygian blood be dyed. Since rallying from our wall we force the foe, still aimed at Hector have I bent my bow. 8 forky arrows from his hand have fled, and 8 bold heroes by their points lie dead. But sure some god denies me to destroy this fury of the field, this dog of Troy. He said, and twanged the string. The weapon flies at Hector's breast and sings along the skies. He missed the mark, but pierced Gergithio's heart, and drenched in royal blood the thirsty dart. Fair Castianura, nymph of form divine, this offspring added to King Priam's line. As full-blown poppies, overcharged with rain, decline the head, and drooping kiss the plain. So sinks the youth. His beauteous head, depressed beneath his helmet, drops upon his breast. Another shaft the raging archer drew. That other shaft with erring fury flew. From Hector, Phoebus turned the flying wound, yet fell not dry or guiltless to ground. Thy breast, brave Archeptolemus, it tore and dipped its feathers in no vulgar gore. Headlong he falls. His sudden fall alarms the steeds, that startle at his sounding arms. Hector with grief his charioteer beheld all pale and breathless on the sanguine field. Then bids Cebriones direct the rein, quits his bright car, and issues on the plain. Dreadful he shouts. From earth a stone he took, and rushed on Teucer with the lifted rock. The youth already strained the forceful yew, the shaft already to his shoulder drew, the feather in his hand, just winged for flight, touched with the neck and hollow chest unite. There, where the juncture knits the channel bone, the furious chief discharged the craggy stone. The bowstring burst beneath the ponderous blow, and his numbed hand dismissed his useless bow. He fell, But Ajax his broad shield displayed, and screened his brother with a mighty shade, till great Alastor and Mecisteus bore the battered archer groaning to the shore. Troy yet found grace before the Olympian sire. He armed their hands, and filled their breasts with fire. The Greeks repulse, retreat behind their wall, or in the trench on heaps confusedly fall. First of the foe, great Hector marched along, with terror clothed and more than mortal strong. As the bold hound, that gives a lion chase, with beating bosom and with eager pace, hangs on his haunch or fastens on his heels, guards as he turns, and circles as he wheels. Thus off the Grecians turned, but still they flew. Thus following, Hector still the hindmost slew. When flying they had passed the trench profound, and many a chief lay gasping on the ground. Before the ships a desperate stand they made, and fired the troops, and called the gods to aid. Fierce on his rattling chariot Hector came. His eyes like Gorgons shot a sanguine flame that withered all their host. Like Mars he stood, dire as the monster, dreadful as a god. Their strong, distressed wife of Jove surveyed. Then pensive thus, to war's triumphant maid, O daughter of that god, whose arm can wield the avenging bolt, and shake the sable shield, now, in this moment of her last despair, shall wretched Greece no more confess our care, condemned to suffer the full force of fate, and drain the dregs of heaven's relentless hate? Gods, shall one raging hand thus level all? What numbers fell, what numbers yet shall fall? What power divine shall Hector's wrath assuage? Still swells the slaughter, and still grows the rage. So spake the imperial regent of the skies, to whom the goddess with the azure eyes. Long since had Hector stained these fields with gore, stretched by some Argive on his native shore. But he above, the sire of heaven, withstands, mocks our attempts, and slights our just demands. The stubborn god, inflexible and hard, forgets my service and deserved reward. Saved I for this his favorite son distressed, by stern Eurystheus with long labors pressed? He begged, with tears he begged, in deep dismay. I shot from heaven, and gave his arm the day. Oh, had my wisdom known this dire event, when to grim Pluto's gloomy gates he went. The triple dog had never felt his chain, nor Styx been crossed, nor hell explored in vain. Averse to me of all his heaven of gods, at Thetis' suit the partial thunder nods. To grace her gloomy, fierce, resenting sun, my hopes are frustrated and my Greeks undone. Some future day, perhaps, he may be moved to call his blue-eyed maid his best beloved. Haste, launch thy chariot, through yon ranks to ride. Myself will arm and thunder at thy side. Then, goddess, say, shall Hector glory then? That terror of the Greeks, that man of men, when Juno's self in palace shall appear, all dreadful in the crimson walks of war. What mighty Trojan then, on yonder shore, expiring pale and terrible no more, shall feast the fowls, and glut the dogs with gore? She ceased, and Juno reined the steeds with care, heaven's awful empress, Saturn's other heir. Pallas, meanwhile, her various veil unbound, with flowers adorned, with art immortal crowned. The radiant robe her sacred fingers wove floats in rich waves, and spreads the court of Jove. Her father's arms her mighty limbs invest, his cuirass blazes on her ample breast. The vigorous power the trembling car sends, shook by her arm, the massy javelin bends. Huge, ponderous, strong, that when her fury burns proud tyrant humbles, and whole hosts o'erturns. Saturnia lends a lash. The coursers fly. Smooth glides a chariot through the liquid sky. Heaven's gates spontaneous open to the powers. Heaven's golden gates, kept by the winged hours. Commissioned in alternate watch they stand. The sun's bright portals in the sky's command. Close or unfold, the eternal gates of day bar heaven with clouds, or roll those clouds away. The sounding hinges ring, the clouds divide. Prone down the steep of heaven, their course they guide. But Jove, incensed, from Ida's top surveyed, and thus enjoined the many-colored maid. Juno and Minerva going to assist the Greeks, Thaumantia, mount the winds, and stop their car against the highest who shall wage the war? If furious, yet they dare the vain debate. Thus have I spoke, and what I speak is fate. Their coursers crushed beneath the wheels shall lie, their car in fragments, scattered o'er the sky. My lightning these rebellious shall confound, and hurl them flaming headlong to the ground, condemned for 10 revolving years to weep the wounds impressed by burning thunder deep. So shall Minerva learn to fear our ire, nor dare to combat hers and nature's sire. For Juno, headstrong and imperious still, she claims some title to transgress our will. Swift as the wind, the veriest sculled maid from Ida's top her golden wings displayed. To great Olympus' shining gate she flies. There meets the chariot rushing down the skies, restrains their progress from the bright abodes, and speaks the mandate of the sire of gods. What frenzied goddesses! What rage can move celestial minds to tempt the wrath of Jove? Desist, obedient to his high command. This is his word, and know his word shall stand. His lightning your rebellion shall confound, and hurl ye headlong, flaming, to the ground. Your horses crushed beneath the wheels shall lie, your car in fragments scattered o'er the sky. Yourselves condemned 10 rolling years to weep the wounds impressed by burning thunder deep. So shall Minerva learn to fear his ire, nor dare to combat hers and nature's sire. For Juno, headstrong and imperious still, she claims some title to transgress his will. But what desperate insolence has driven to lift thy lance against the king of heaven? Then, mounting on the pinions of the wind, she flew, and Juno thus her rage resigned. O daughter of that god, whose arm can wield the avenging bolt, and shake the saber shield, no more let beings of superior birth contend with Jove for this low race of earth. Triumphant now miserably slain, they breathe or perish as the fates ordain. But Jove's high counsels full effect shall find, and ever constant, ever rule mankind. She spoke, and backward turned her steeds of light, adorned with manes of gold and heavenly bright. The hours unloosed them, panting as they stood, and heaped their mangers with ambrosial food. They're tied, they rest in high celestial stalls, the chariot propped against the crystal walls. The pensive goddesses, abashed, controlled, mix with the gods, and fill their seats of gold. The hours taken horses from Juno's Sierra, and now the thunder meditates his flight, from Ida's summits to the Olympian height. Swifter than thought, the wheels instinctive fly, flame through the vast of air and reach the sky. 'Twas Neptune's charge his coursers to unbrace, and fix the car on its immortal base. There stood the chariot, beaming forth its rays, till with snowy veil he screened the blaze. He, whose all-conscious eyes the world behold, the eternal thunder sat, enthroned in gold. High heaven the footstool of his feet he makes, and wide beneath him all Olympus shakes. Trembling afar the offending powers appeared, confused and silent, for his frown they feared. He saw their soul, and thus his word imparts. Pallas and Juno, say, why heave your hearts? Soon was your battle o'er. Proud Troy retired before your face, and in your wrath expired. But know, who our almighty power withstand? Unmatched our force, unconquered is our hand. Who shall the sovereign of the skies control? Not all the gods that crown the starry pole. Your hearts shall tremble, if our arms we take, and each immortal nerve with horror shake. For thus I speak, and what I speak shall stand. What power soever provokes our lifted hand, on this our hill no more shall hold his place. Cut off, and exiled from the ethereal race. Juno and Pallas grieving hear the doom, but feast their souls on Ilion's woes to come. Those secret angers swell Minerva's breast. The prudent goddess yet her wrath repressed, but Juno, impotent of rage, replies, What hast thou said, O tyrant of the skies? Strength and omnipotence invest thy throne. 'Tis thine to punish, ours to grieve alone. For Greece we grieve, abandoned by our fate, to drink the dregs of thy unmeasured hate. From fields forbidden we submiss refrain, with arms unaiding see our Argives slain. Yet grant our counsels still their breasts may move, lest all should perish in the rage of Jove. The goddess thus, and thus the god replies, who swells the cloud and blackens all the skies. The morning sun, awake by loud alarms, shall see the almighty thunderer in arms. What heaps of Argives then shall load the plain, those radiant eyes shall view, and view in vain. Nor shall great Hector cease the rage of fight, the navy flaming, and thy Greeks in flight. Even till the day when certain fates ordain that stern Achilles, his Patroclus slain, shall rise in vengeance and lay waste the plain. For such is fate, nor canst thou turn its course with all thy rage, with all thy rebel force. Fly, if thou wilt, to earth's remotest bound, where on her utmost verge the seas resound, where cursed Iapetus and Saturn dwell, fast by the brink, within the streams of hell. No sun e'er gilds the gloomy horrors there, no cheerful gales refresh the lazy air. There arm once more the bold Titanian band, and arm in vain, for what I will shall stand. Now deep in ocean sunk the lamp of light, and drew behind the cloudy veiled night. The conquering Trojans mourn as beams decayed. The Greeks rejoicing bless the friendly shade. The victors keep the field, and Hector calls a martial council near the navy walls. The Aeacus commanders bank a party led, where thinly scattered lay the heaps of dead. The assembled chiefs, descending on the ground, attend his order and their prince around. A massy spear he bore of mighty strength. Of full 10 cubits was a lance's length. The point was brass, refulgent to behold, fixed of the wood with circling rings of gold. The noble Hector on his lance reclined, and bending forward, thus revealed his mind. Ye valiant Trojans, with attention hear, ye Dardan bands and generous aids, give ear. This day, we hoped, would wrap in conquering flame Greece with her ships, and crown our toils of fame. But darkness now, to save the cowards, falls, and guards them trembling in their wooden walls. Obey the night, and use her peaceful hours our steeds to forage, and refresh our powers. Straight from the town be sheep and oxen sought, and strengthening bread and generous wine be brought. Wide o'er the field, high blazing to the sky, let numerous fires the absent sun supply, the flaming piles with plenteous fuel raise, till the bright morn her purple beam displays. Lest in the silence and the shades of night, Greece on her sable ships attempt her flight. Not unmolested let the wretches gain their lofty decks, or safely cleave the main. Some hostile wound let every dart bestow, some lasting token of the Phrygian foe wounds, that long hence may ask their spouses' care, and warn their children from a Trojan War. Now through the cirque of our Ilian wall, let sacred heralds sound the solemn call, to bid the sires with hoary honors crowned in beardless youths our battlements surround. Firm be the guard, while distant lie our powers, and let the matrons hang with lights the towers, lest, under cover of the midnight shade, the insidious foe the naked town invade. Suffice, tonight, these orders to obey. A nobler charge shall rouse the dawning day. The gods, I trust, shall give a Hector's hand from these detested foes to free the land who plout, with fates averse, the watery way, for Trojan vultures predestined prey. Our common safety must be now the care, but soon as morning paints the fields of air, sheathed in bright arms, let every troop engage, and the fired fleet behold the battle rage. Then shall Hector and Tydides prove whose fates are heaviest in the scales of Jove. Tomorrow's light, O haste the glorious morn, shall see his bloody spoils in triumph borne. With his keen javelin shall his breast be gored, and prostrate heroes bleed around their lord. Certain as this, oh, might my days endure, from age inglorious, and black death secure, so might my life and glory know no bound, like Pallas worshipped, like the sun renowned. As the next dawn, the last they shall enjoy, shall crush the Greeks, and end the woes of Troy. The leader spoke. From all his host around shouts of applause along the shores resound. Each from a yoke the smoking steeds untied, and fixed their headstalls to his chariot side. Fat sheep and oxen from the town are led, with generous wine and all-sustaining bread. Full hecatombs lay burning on the shore. The winds to heaven the curling vapors bore, ungrateful offering to the immortal powers, whose wrath hung heavy o'er the Trojan towers. Nor Priam nor his sons obtained their grace. Proud Troy they hated and her guilty race. The troops exulting sat in order round, and beaming fires illumined all the ground, as when the moon, refulgent lamp of night, o'er heaven's pure azure spreads her sacred light, when not a breath disturbs the deep serene, and not a cloud o'ercasts the solemn scene. Around her throne the vivid planets roll, and stars unnumbered gild the glowing pole. O'er the dark trees a yellower verdure shed, and tip with silver every mountain's head. Then shine the valleys, the rocks in prospect rise, a flood of glory bursts from all the skies. The conscious swains, rejoicing in the sight, eye the blue vault, and bless the useful light. So many flames before proud Ilion blaze, and lighten glimmering Xanthus with their rays. The long reflections of the distant fires gleam on the walls, and tremble on the spires. 1,000 piles the dusky horrors gild, and shoot a shady luster o'er the field. Full 50 guards each flaming pile attend, whose umbered arms by fits thick flashes send. Loud neigh the coursers o'er their heaps of corn, and ardent warriors wait the rising morn. The shield of Achilles. Book 9. Argument. The embassy to Achilles. Agamemnon, after the last day's defeat, proposes to the Greeks to quit the siege and return to their country. Dion deposes this, and Nestor seconds him, praising his wisdom and resolution. He orders the guard to be strengthened, and a council summoned to deliberate what measures are to be followed in this emergency. Agamemnon pursues this advice, and Nestor further prevails upon him to send ambassadors to Achilles in order to move him to a reconciliation. Ulysses and Ajax are made choice of, who are accompanied by old Phoenix. They make, each of them, very moving and pressing speeches, but are rejected with roughness by Achilles, who notwithstanding retains Phoenix in his tent. The ambassadors return unsuccessfully to the camp, and the troops betake themselves to sleep. This book, and the next following, take up the space of one night, which is a 27 from the beginning of the poem. The scene lies on the seashore, the station the Grecian ships. Thus joyful Troy maintained the watch of night, while fear, pale comrade of inglorious flight, 199 in heaven-bred horror, on the Grecian part, sat on each face and saddened every heart, as from its cloudy dungeon issuing forth, a double tempest of the west and north swells o'er the sea, from Thracia's frozen shore, heaps waves on waves, and bids the Aegean roar, this way and that the boiling deeps are tossed. Such various passions urge the troubled host. Great Agamemnon grieved above the rest. Superior sorrow swelled his royal breast. Himself his orders to the herald bears, to bid to council all the Grecian peers, but bid in whispers. These surround their chief in solemn sadness and majestic grief. The king amidst a mournful circle rose. Down his one cheek a briny torrent flows. So silent fountains, from a rock's tall head, in sable streams soft-trickling waters shed. With more than vulgar grief he stood oppressed. Words, mixed with sighs, thus bursting from his breast. Ye sons of Greece, partake your leader's care, fellows in arms and princes of the war. Of partial Jove, too, justly we complain, and heavenly oracles believed in vain. A safe return was promised to our toils, with conquest honored and enriched with spoils. Now shameful flight alone can save the host, our wealth, our people, and our glory lost. So Jove decrees, almighty Lord of all, Jove, at whose gnawed whole empires rise or fall, who shakes the feeble props of human trust, and towers and armies humbles to the dust. Haste then, for ever quit these fatal fields, haste the joys our native country yields. Spread all your canvas, all your oars employ, nor hope the fall of heaven-defended Troy. He said, deep silence held the Grecian band. Silent, unmoved in dire dismay they stand, a pensive scene, till Tydeus' warlike son rolled on the king his eyes, and thus begun. When kings advise us to renounce our fame, first let him speak who first has suffered shame. If I oppose thee, prince, thy wrath withhold, the laws of counsel bid my tongue be bold. Thou first, and thou alone, in fields of fight, durst brand my courage and defame my might. Nor from a friend the unkind reproach appeared. The Greeks stood witness, all our army heard. The gods, O chief, from whom our honors spring, the gods have made thee but by as a king. They gave thee scepters and a wide command. They gave dominion o'er the seas and land. The noblest power that might the world control, they gave thee not, a brave and virtuous soul. Is this a general's voice that would suggest fears like his own to every Grecian breast? Confiding in our want of worth, he stands. And if we fly, 'tis what our king commands. Go thou inglorious from embattled plain. Ships thou hast store, and nearest the main, a noble care the Grecian shall employ, to combat, conquer, and extirpate Troy. Here Greece shall stay, or if all Greece retire, myself shall stay, till Troy or I expire. Myself and Sthenelus will fight for fame. God bade us fight, and 'twas with God we came. He ceased. The Greeks loud acclamations raise, and voice to voice resounds Tydides' praise. Wise Nestor then his reverend figure reared. He spoke. The host in still attention heard. O truly great, in whom the gods have joined such strength of body with such force of mind. In conduct, as in courage, you excel, still first to act what you advise so well. These wholesome counsels which thy wisdom moves, applauding Greece with common voice approves. Kings thou canst blame, a bold but prudent youth, and blame even kings with praise, because with truth. And yet those years that since thy birth have run would hardly style thee Nestor's youngest son. Then let me add what yet remains behind, a thought unfinished in that generous mind. Age bids me speak, nor shall the advice I bring disgrace the people or offend the king. Cursed is the man, and void of law and right, unworthy property, unworthy light, unfit for public rule or private care, that wretch, that monster, who delights in war, whose lust is murder, and whose horrid joy, to tear his country and his kind destroy. This night refresh and fortify thy train, between the trench and wall let guards remain, be it the duty of the young and bold. But thou, O king, to council call the old. Great is thy sway and weighty are thy cares. Thy high commands must spirit all our wars. With Thracian wines recruit thy honored guests, for happy counsels flow from sober feasts. Wise, weighty counsels aid a state distressed, and such a monarch as can choose the best. See what a blaze from hostile tents aspires, how near our fleet approach the Trojan fires. Who can unmoved behold the dreadful light? What I beholds them, and can close tonight. This dreadful interval determines all. Tomorrow Troy must flame or Greece must fall. Thus spoke the hoary sage. The rest obey. Swift through the gates the guards direct their way. His son was first to pass the lofty mound, the generous Thrasymed, in arms renowned. Next him, Ascalaphus, Ilion, stood, the double offspring of the warrior god. Deipyrus, Apharius, Marion join, and like him to Creon's noble line. 7 were the leaders of the knightly bands, and each bold chief 100 spears commands. The fires they light, to short repast they fall. Some line the trench, and others man the wall. The king of men, on public councils bent, convened the princes in his ample tent. Each seized a portion of the kingly feast, but stayed his hand when thirst and hunger ceased. Then Nestor spoke, for wisdom long approved, and slowly rising, thus the council moved. Monarch of nations, whose superior sway assembled states, and lords of earth obey, the laws and scepters of thy hand are given, and millions own the care of thee in heaven. O king, the counsels of my age attend. With thee my cares begin, with thee must end. Thee, prince, it fits alike to speak and hear, pronounce with judgment, with regard give ear, to see no wholesome motion be withstood, and ratify the best for public good. Nor, though a meaner give advice, repine, but follow it, and make the wisdom thine. Hear then a thought, not now conceived in haste, at once my present judgment and my past. When from Pelides 10 you force a maid, I first oppose, and faithful durst dissuade, but bold of soul, when headlong fury fired, you wronged a man, by men and gods admired. Now seek some means his fatal wrath to end, with prayers to move him, or with gifts to bend. To whom the king, with justice hast thou shown a prince's faults, and I with reason own. That happy man, whom Jove still honors most, is more than armies, and himself a host. Blessed in his love, this wondrous hero stands. Heaven fights his war, and humbles all our bands. Fain would my heart, which erred through frantic rage, the wrathful chief and angry gods assuage. If gifts immense his mighty soul can bow here, all ye Greeks, and witness what I vow. 10 weighty talents of the purest gold, and twice 10 vases of refulgent mold. 7 sacred tripods, whose unsullied frame yet knows no office, nor is felt the flame. 12 steeds unmatched in fleetness and in force, and still victorious in the dusty course. Rich with a man whose ample stores exceed the prizes purchased by their winged speed winky face. 7 lovely captives of the lesbian line, skilled in each art, unmatched in form divine. The same I chose for more than vulgar charms, when Lesbo sank beneath the hero's arms. All these, to buy his friendship, shall be paid, and join with these the long-contested maid. With all her charms, Briseis I resign, and solemn swear those charms were never mine. Untouched she stayed, uninjured she removes, pure from my arms, and guiltless of my loves these instants shall be his. And if the powers give to our arms proud Ilion's hostile towers, then shall he store when Greece the spoil divides, with gold and brass his loaded navy's sides. Besides, full 20 nymphs of Trojan race with copious love shall crown his warm embrace, such as himself will choose, who yield to none, or yield to Helen's heavenly charms alone. Yet hear me further. When our wars are o'er, if safe we land on Argo's fruitful shore, there shall he live my son, our honors share, and with Orestes' self divide my care. Yet more, 3 daughters of my core are bred, and each well worthy of a royal bed. Laodice and Iphigenia fair, and bright Chrysothemis with golden hair. Her let him choose whom most his eyes approve. I ask no presents, no reward for love. Myself will give a dower. So vast a store as never father gave a child before. 7 ample cities shall confess his sway, Himenope, and Pharium obey. Cardamai with ample turrets crowned, and sacred Pedasus for vines renowned. Epea fair, the pastures here he yields, and rich Anthea with her flowery fields a whole extent to Pylos' sandy plain, along the verdant margin of the main. There heifers graze, and laboring oxen toil. Bold are the men, and generous is the soil. There shall he reign, with power and justice crowned, and rule the tributary realms around. All this I give, his vengeance to control, and sure all this may move his mighty soul. Pluto, the grisly god, who never spares, who feels no mercy, and who hears no prayers, lives dark and dreadful in deep hell's abodes, and mortals hate him, as the worst of gods. Great though he be, it fits him to obey, since more than is my years, and more my sway. Pluto, the monarch thus, the reverend Nestor then, great Agamemnon, glorious king of men, such are thy offers as a prince may take, and such as fits a generous king to make. Let chosen delegates this hour be sent, myself will name them, to Pelides' tent. Let Phoenix lead, revered for hoary age, great Ajax next, and Ithacus the sage. Yet more to sanctify the word you send, let Hodius and Eurybates attend. Now pray to Jove to grant what Greece demands. Pray in deep silence, and with purest hands the embassy told Achilles, he said, and all approved. The heralds bring the cleansing water from the living spring. The youth with wine the sacred goblets crowned, and large libations drench the sands around. The rite performed, the chiefs their thirst allay. Then from the royal tent they take their way. Wise Nestor turns on each his careful eye, forbids to offend, instructs them to apply. Much he advised them all, Ulysses most, to deprecate the chief and save the host. Through the still night they march, and hear the roar of murmuring billows on the sounding shore. To Neptune, ruler of the seas profound, whose liquid arms the mighty globe surround, they pour forth vows, their embassy to bless, and calm the rage of stern Aeacides. And now, arrived where on the sandy bay the Myrmidonian tents and vessels lay, amused at ease, the godlike man they found, pleased with the solemn harp's harmonious sound. The well-wrought harp from conquered the bay came, of polished silver was its costly frame. With this he soothes his angry soul, and sings the immortal deeds of heroes and of kings. Patroclus only of the royal train, placed in his tent, attends a lofty strain. Full opposite he sat, and listened long, in silence waiting till he ceased the song. Unseen the Grecian embassy proceeds to his high tent. The great Ulysses leads. Achilles starting, as the chiefs he spied, leaped from his seat and laid the harp aside. With like surprise arose Menoetius' son. Pelides grasped their hands, and thus begun, Princes, all hail! Whatever brought you here, or strong necessity, or urgent fear, welcome, though Greeks. For not as foes ye came, to me more dear than all that bear the name. With that, the chiefs beneath his roof he led, and placed in seats with purple carpets spread. Then thus, Patroclus, crown a larger bowl, mix pure wine, and open every soul. Of all the warriors yonder host can send, thy friend most honors these, and these thy friend. He said, Patroclus o'er the blazing fire heaps in a brazen vase 3 chins entire. The brazen vase Automedon sustains, which flesh of porker, sheep, and goat contains. Achilles at the genial feast presides, the parts transfixes, and with skill divides. Meanwhile Patroclus sweats, the fire to raise. The tent is brightened with a rising blaze. Then, when the languid flames at length subside, he strews a bed of glowing embers wide. Above the coals the smoking fragments turns, and sprinkles sacred salt from lifted urns. With bread the glittering canisters they load, which round the board Menoetius' son bestowed. Himself opposed Ulysses full in sight, each portion parts, and orders every rite. The first fat offering to the immortals due, amidst the greedy flames Patroclus threw. Then each, indulging in the social feast, his thirst and hunger soberly repressed. That done, to Phoenix Ajax gave the sign, not unperceived. Ulysses crowned with wine the foaming bowl, and instant thus began his speech addressing to the godlike man. Health to Achilles! Happy are thy guests, not those more honor whom Atrides feasts. Though generous plenty crown thy loaded boards, that Agamemnon's regal tent affords, but greater cares sit heavy on our souls, nor ease by banquets or by flowing bowls. What scenes of slaughter in yon fields appear! The dead we mourn, and for the living fear. Greece on the brink of fate all doubtful stands, and owns no help but from thy saving hands. Troy and her aids for ready vengeance call. Their threatening tents already shade our wall. Hear how with shouts their conquest they proclaim, and point at every ship their vengeful flame. For them the Father of the gods declares, theirs are his omens and his thunder theirs. See, full of Jove, avenging Hector rise. See, heaven and earth the raging chief defies. What fury in his breast, what lightning his eyes! He waits but for the morn, to sink in flame the ships, the Greeks, and all the Grecian name. Heavens! How my country's woes distract my mind, lest fate accomplish all his rage designed. And must we, gods, our heads inglorious lay in Trojan dust, and this the fatal day? Return, Achilles, O return, though late, to save thy Greeks and stop the course of fate. If in that heart or grief or courage lies, rise to redeem. Ah, yet to conquer, rise. The day may come, when, all our warriors slain, that heart shall melt, that courage rise in vain. Regard in time, O Prince divinely brave, those wholesome counsels which thy father gave. When Peleus in his aged arms embraced his parting son, these accents were his last. My child, with strength, with glory and success, thy arms made Juno and Minerva bless. Trust that of heaven. But thou, thy cares engage to calm thy passions and subdue thy rage. From gentler manners let thy glory grow, and shun contention, the sure source of woe. That young and old may in thy praise combine, the virtues of humanity be thine. This now despised advice thy father gave. Ah, check thy anger, and be truly brave. If thou wilt yield to great Atrides' prayers, gifts worthy thee his royal hand prepares. If not, but hear me, while I number o'er the proffered presents, an exhaustless store, 10 weighty talents of the purest gold, and twice 10 vases of refulgent mold, 7 sacred tripods, whose unsullied frame yet knows no office, nor has felt the flame, 12 steeds unmatched in fleetness and in force, and still victorious in the dusty course. Rich with man, whose ample stores exceed the prizes purchased by their winged speed winky face. 7 lovely captives of the lesbian line, skilled in each art, unmatched in form divine, the same he chose for more than vulgar charms, when Lesbos sank beneath thy conquering arms. All these, to buy thy friendship shall be paid, and join with these the long-contested maid. With all her charms, Briseis he'll resign, and solemn swear those charms were only thine. Untouched she stayed, uninjured she removes, pure from his arms, and guiltless of his loves. These instant shall be thine. And if the powers give to our arms proud Ilion's hostile towers, then shalt thou store, when Greece the spoil divides, with gold and brass thy loaded navy's sides. Besides, full 20 nymphs of Trojan race with copious love shall crown thy warm embrace, such as thyself shall chose, who yield to none, or yield to Helen's heavenly charms alone. Yet hear me further. When our wars are o'er, if safe we land on Argo's fruitful shore, there shalt thou live his son his honor share, and with Orestes' self divide his care. Yet more, 3 daughters in his court are bred, and each well worthy of a royal bed. Laodice and Iphigenia fair, and bright Chrysothemis with golden hair. Her shalt thou with whom most thy eyes approve. He asks no presents, no reward for love. Himself will give a dower, so vast a store as never father gave a child before. 7 ample cities shall confess thy sway. The Enope and Ferry thee obey. Cardamile with ample turrets crowned, and sacred Pedasus, for vines renowned. Aepia fair, the pastures Hera yields, and rich Anthea with her flowery fields. The whole extent of Pylos' sandy plain, along the verdant margin of the main. Their heifers graze, and laboring oxen toil. Bold are the men, and generous is the soil. There shalt thou reign, with power and justice crowned, and rule the tributary realms around. Such are the proffers which this day we bring, such the repentance of a suppliant king. But if all this relentless thou disdain, if honor and if interest plead in vain, yet some redress the suppliant Greece afford, and be, amongst her guardian gods, adored. If no regard thy suffering country claim, hear thy own glory and the voice of fame. For now that chief, whose unresisted ire made nations tremble, and whole hosts retire. Proud Hector, now, the unequal fight demands, and only triumphs to deserve thy hands. Then thus the goddess born, Ulysses, hear a faithful speech, that knows nor art nor fear. What in my secret soul's understood, my tongue shall utter, and my deeds make good. Let Greece then know, my purpose I retain, nor with new treaties vex my peace in vain. Who dares think one thing, and another tell, my heart detests him as the gates of hell. Then thus in short my fixed resolves attend, which nor tribes nor his Greeks can bend. Long toils, long perils in her cause I bore, but now the unfruitful glories charm no more. Fight or not fight, alike reward we claim, the wretch and hero find their prize the same. Alike regret in the dust he lies, who yields ignobly or who bravely dies. Of all my dangers, all my glorious pains, a life of labors, lo, what fruit remains? As the bold bird her helpless young attends, from danger guards him and from want defends. In search of prey she wings the spacious air, and with the untasted food supplies her care. For thankless Greece such hardships have I brave, her wives, her infants, by my labors saved. Long sleepless nights and heavy arms I stood, and sweat laborious days in dust and blood. I sacked 12 ample cities on the main, and 12 lay smoking on the Trojan plain. Then at Atride's haughty feet were laid the wealth I gathered, and the spoils I made. Your mighty monarch these in peace possessed. Some few my soldiers had, himself the rest. Some present, too, to every prince was paid, and every prince enjoys the gift he made. I only must refund of all his train. See what preeminence our merits gain. My spoil alone his greedy soul delights. My spouse alone must bless his lustful nights. The woman, let him as he may, enjoy. But what's the quarrel then of Greece to Troy? What to these shores the assembled nations draws? What calls for vengeance but a woman's cause? Our fair endowments, and a beauteous face beloved by none but those of Atreus' race? The wife whom choice and passion doth approve, sure every wise and worthy man will love. Nor did my fair one less distinction claim. Slave as she was, my soul adored the dame. Wronged in my love, all proffers I disdain. Deceived for once, I trust not kings again. Yea, my answer, what remains to do your king Ulysses may consult with you. What needs of the defense this arm can make? Has he not walls no human force can shake? Has he not fenced his guarded navy round with piles, with ramparts, and a trench profound? And will not these, the wonders he has done, repel the rage of Priam's single son? There was a time, 'twas when for Greece I fought, when Hector's prowess no such wonders wrought. He kept the verge of Troy, nor dared await Achilles' fury at the Scaean gate. He tried it once, and scarce was saved by fate. But now those ancient enmities are o'er. Tomorrow we the favoring God implore. Then shall you see our parting vessels crowned, and hear with oar the Hellespont resound. The third day hence shall Pythia greet our sails, if mighty Neptune send propitious gales. Pythia to her Achilles shall restore the wealth he left for this detested shore. Thither the spoils of this long war shall pass, the ruddy gold, the steel, and shining brass. My beauteous captives thither I'll convey, and all that rest of my unravished prey. One only valued gift your tyrant gave, and that resumed the fair Lernetian slave. Then tell him, loud, that all the Greeks may hear, and learn to scorn the wretch they basely fear. For armed in impudence, mankind he braves, and meditates new cheats on all his slaves. Though shameless as he is, to face these eyes is what he dares not. If he dares, he dies winky face. Tell him, all terms, all commerce I decline, nor share his counsel, nor his battle join. For once deceived was his, but twice were mine, no. Let the stupid prince, whom Jove deprives of sense and justice, run where frenzy drives. His gifts are hateful. Kings of such a kind stand but as slaves before a noble mind, not though he proffered all himself possessed, and all his rapine could from others wrest. Not all the golden tides of wealth that crown the many-peopled Orchomenian town, the many-peopled Orchomenian town wink with a frown 209. Not all proud Thebes' unrivaled walls contain the world's great empress on the Egyptian plain, that spreads her conquests o'er 1,000 states, and pours her heroes through 100 gates, 200 horsemen, and 200 cars from each wide portal issuing to the wars, though bribes were heaped on bribes, in number more than dust in fields or sands along the shore. Should all these offers for my friendship call, 'Tis he that offers, and I scorn them all. Atride's daughter never shall be led, an ill-matched consort, to Achilles' bed, like golden Venus, though she charm the heart, and vied with Pallas in the works of art. Some greater Greek let those high nuptials grace. I hate alliance with a tyrant's race. If heaven restore me to my realms of life, the reverend Peleus shall elect my wife. Thessalian nymphs there are of form divine, and kings that sue to mix their blood with mine. Blessed in kind love, my years shall glide away, content with just hereditary sway. There, deaf forever to the martial strife, enjoy the dear prerogative of life. Life is not to be bought with heaps of gold. Not all Apollo's Pythian treasures hold, or Troy once held, in peace and pride a sway, can bribe the poor possession of a day. Lost herds and treasures we by arms regain, and steeds unrivaled on the dusty plain. But from our lips the vital spirit fled, returns no more to wake the silent dead. My fates long since by Thetis were disclosed, and each alternate, life or fame proposed. Here if I stay, before the Trojan town, short is my date, but deathless my renown. If I return, I quit immortal praise for years on years and long extended days. Convinced, though late, I find my fond mistake, and warn the Greeks the wiser choice to make. To quit these shores, their native seats enjoy, nor hope the fall of heaven-defended Troy. Jove's arm displayed a searcher from the skies. Her hearts are strengthened, and her glories rise. Go then to Greece, report our fixed design. Bid all your councils, all your armies join, all your forces, all your arts conspire, to save the ships, the troops, the chiefs, from fire. One stratagem has failed, and others will. Ye find Achilles is unconquered still. Go then, digest my message as ye may, but here this night let reverend Phoenix stay. His tedious toils and hoary hairs demand a peaceful death in Pythia's friendly land. But whether he remain or sail with me, his age be sacred and his will be free. Greek galley the son of Peleus ceased. The chiefs around in silence wrapped, in consternation drowned, attend the stern reply. Then Phoenix rose. Down his white beard a stream of sorrow flows winky face. And while the fate of suffering Greece he mourned, with accent weak these tender words returned. Proserpine, divine Achilles, wilt thou then retire, and leave our hosts in blood, our fleets on fire? If wrath so dreadful fill thy ruthless mind, how shall thy friend, thy Phoenix, stay behind? The royal Peleus, when from Pythia's coast he sent thee early to the Achaean host, thy youth as then in sage debates unskilled, and knew the perils of the direful field. He bade me teach thee all the ways of war, to shine in councils and in camps to dare. Never, never let me leave thy side. No time shall part us, and no fate divide, not though the God that breathed my life restore the bloom I boasted and the port I bore, when Greece of old beheld my youthful flames, delightful Greece, the land of lovely dames. My father faithless to my mother's arms, old as he was, adored a stranger's charms. I tried what youth could do, at her desire, to win the damsel and prevent my sire. My sire with curses loads my hated head, and cries, Ye Furies, barren be his bed. Infernal Jove, the vengeful fiends below, and ruthless Proserpine, confirmed his vow. Despair and grief distract my laboring mind. Gods, what a crime my impious heart designed. I thought, but some kind God that thought suppressed, to plunge upon you to my father's breast, then meditate my flight. My friends in vain with prayers entreat me, and with force detain. On fat of rams, black bulls, and brawny swine, they daily feast, with draughts of fragrant wine. Strong guards they place, and watch 9 nights entire. The roofs and porches flame with constant fire. The 10th, I force the gates, unseen of all, and, favored by the night, o'erleap the wall. My travels thence through spacious Greece extend. In Thyia's court at last my labors end. Your sire received me, as his son caressed, with gifts enriched and with possessions blessed. The strong Dolopians thenceforth own my reign, and all the coast that runs along the main. By love to these bounties I repaid, and early wisdom to thy soul conveyed. Great as thou art, my lessons made thee brave. A child I took thee, but a hero gave. Thy infant breast like affection showed. Still in my arms, an ever-pleasing load, or at my knee, by Phoenix wouldst thou stand. No food was grateful but from Phoenix. Hand I passed my watchings o'er thy helpless years, the tender labors, the compliant cares, the gods, I thought, reverse their hard decree, and Phoenix fell father's joys in thee. Thy growing virtues justified my cares, and promised comfort to my silver hairs. Now be thy fatal rage, resigned. A cruel heart ill suits a manly mind. The gods, the only great and only wise, are moved by offerings, vows, and sacrifice. Offending man their high compassion wins, and daily prayers atone for daily sins. Prayers are Jove's daughters, of celestial race. Lame are their feet, and wrinkled is their face. With humble mien and with dejected eyes, constant they follow where injustice flies. Injustice, swift, erect, and unconfined, sweeps the wide earth and tramples o'er mankind, while prayers, to heal her wrongs, move slow behind. Who hears these daughters of Almighty Jove? For him they mediate the throne above. When man rejects the humble suit they make, the sire revenges for the daughter's sake. From Jove commissioned, fierce injustice then descends to punish unrelenting men. Oh, let not headlong passion bear the sway these reconciling goddesses obey. Do honors to the seat of Jove belong. Do honors calm the fierce and bend the strong. Were these not paid thee by the terms we bring, were rage still harbored in the haughty king. Nor Greece nor all her fortunes should engage thy friend to plead against so just a rage. But since what honor asks the general sends, and sends by those whom most thy heart commends, the best and noblest of the Grecian train, permit not these to sue and sue in vain. Let me, my son, an ancient fact unfold, a great example drawn from times of old. Hear what our fathers were, and what their praise, who conquered their revenge in former days. Where Calydon on rocky mountain stands, once fought the Aetolian and Curtion bands. To guard at those, to conquer these advance, and mutual deaths were dealt with mutual chance. The silver Cynthia bade contention rise, in vengeance and neglected sacrifice. On Ennius field she sent a monstrous boar, that levelled harvest and whole forests tore. This beast, when many a chief his tusks had slain, great Meleager stretched along the plain. Then, for his spoils, a new debate arose, the neighbor nations thence commencing foes. Strong as they were, the bold Curetes failed, while Meleager's thundering arm prevailed, till rage at length inflamed his lofty breast, for rage invades the wisest and the best. Cursed by Althea, to his wrath he yields, and in his wife's embrace forgets the fields. She from Marpessa sprung, divinely fair, and matchless Idas, more than man in war. The god of day adored a mother's charms, against the god the father bent his arms. The afflicted pair, their sorrows to proclaim, from Cleopatra changed their daughter's name, and called Alcyone, a name to show the father's grief, the mourning mother's woe. To her the chief retired from stern debate, but found no peace from fierce Althea's hate. Althea's hate the unhappy warrior drew, whose luckless hand his royal uncle slew. She beat the ground, and called the powers beneath on her own son to wreak her brother's death. Hell heard her curses from the realm profound, and the red fiends that walked the nightly round. In vain Aetolia her deliverer waits. War shakes her walls, and thunders at her gates. She sent ambassadors, a chosen band, priests of the gods and elders of the land, besought the chief to save the sinking state. Their prayers were urgent and their proffers great. Full 50 acres of the richest ground, half pasture green, and half with vineyards crowned. His suppliant father, aged Ennius, came. His sisters followed. Even the vengeful dame Althea sues. His friends before him fall. He stands relentless, and rejects them all. Meanwhile the victor's shouts ascend the skies. The walls are scaled. The rolling flames arise. At length his wife, a form divine, appears, with piercing cries and supplicating tears. She paints the horrors of a conquered town, the heroes slain, the palaces o'erthrown, the matrons ravished, the whole race enslaved. The warrior heard, he vanquished, and he saved. The Aetolians, long disdained, now took their turn, and left the chief their broken faith to mourn. Learn hence, betimes occur pernicious ire, nor stay till yonder fleets ascend in fire. Accept the presence, draw thy conquering sword, and be amongst our guardian gods adored. Thus he, the stern Achilles, thus replied, My second father and my reverend guide, thy friend, believe me, no such gifts demands, and asks no honors from a mortal's hands. Jove honors me and favors my designs. His pleasure guides me and his will confines. And here I stay, if such is high behest, while life's warm spirit beats within my breast. Yet hear one word, and lodge it in thy heart. No more molest me on Atride's part. Is it for him these tears are taught to flow, for him these sorrows? For my mortal foe? A generous friendship no cold medium knows, burns with one love, with one resentment glows. One should our interests and our passions be. My friend must hate the man that injures me. Do this, my phoenix. 'Tis a generous part, and share my realms, my honors, and my heart. Let these return. Our voyage or our stay, rest undetermined till the dawning day. He ceased. Then order for Sage's bed a warmer couch with numerous carpets spread. With that, stern Ajax's long silence broke, and thus impatient to Ulysses spoke. Hence let us go. Why waste we time in vain? See what effect our low submissions gain. Liked or not liked, his words we must relate. The Greeks expect him, and our heroes wait. Proud as he is, that iron heart retains its stubborn purpose, and his friends disdains. Stern and unpitying, if a brother bleed, on just atonement, we remit the deed. A sigh of the slaughter his son forgives. The price of blood discharged, the murderer lives. The haughtiest hearts at length their rage resign, and gifts can conquer every soul but thine. The gods that unrelenting breast have steeled, and curse thee with a mind that cannot yield. One woman slave was ravished from thy arms. Lo, 7 are offered and of equal charms. Then here, Achilles, be of better mind. Revere thy roof, and to thy guests be kind, and know the men of all the Grecian host who honor worth and prize thy valor most. O soul of battles, and thy people's guide, to Ajax thus the first of Greeks replied. Well hast thou spoke, but at the tyrant's name my rage rekindles, and my soul's on flame. 'Tis just resentment, and becomes the brave, disgraced, dishonored like the vilest slave. Return, then, heroes, and our answer bear. The glorious combat is no more my care. Not till, amidst yon sinking navy slain, the blood of Greeks shall dye the sable main. Not till the flames by Hector's fury thrown consume your vessels and approach my own. Just there, the impetuous homicide shall stand. There ceases battle, and there feel our hand. This said, each prince a double goblet crown, and cast a large libation on the ground. Then to their vessels, through the gloomy shades, the chiefs return. Divine Ulysses leads. Meantime Achilles' slaves prepare to bed, with fleeces, carpets, and soft linen spread. There, till the sacred morn restore the day, in slumber sweet the reverend Phoenix lay. But in his inner tent, an ampler space, Achilles slept, and in his warm embrace fair Diomede of the lesbian race. Last, for Patroclus was a couch prepared, whose nightly joys the beauteous Iphis shared. Achilles to his friend consigned her charms, when Scyros fell before his conquering arms. And now the elected chiefs whom Greece had sent passed through the hosts and reached the royal tent. Then rising all, with goblets in their hands, the peers and leaders of the Achaean bands hailed their return. Atrides first begun. Say, what success? Divine Laertes' son. Achilles' high resolves declare to all. Returns the chief, or must our navy fall? Great king of nations, Ithacus replied. Fixed is his wrath, unconquered is his pride. He slights thy friendship, thy proposal scorns, and thus implored with fiercer fury burns. To save our army and our fleets to free is not his care, but left to Greece and thee. Your eyes shall view, when morning paints the sky, beneath his oars the whitening billows fly. Us too he bids our oars and sails employ, nor hope the fall of heaven-protected Troy. For Jove o'ershads her with his arm divine, inspires her war, and bids her glory shine. Such was his word. What further he declared, these sacred heralds and great Ajax heard. But Phoenix in his tent the chief retains, safe to transport him to his native plains when morning dawns. If other he decree, his age is sacred and his choice is free. Ulysses ceased. The great Achaean host, with sorrow seized, in consternation lost, attend the stern reply. Tydides broke the general silence, and undaunted spoke. Why should we gifts to proud Achilles send, or strive with prayers his haughty soul to bend? His country's woes he glories to deride, and prayers will burst that swelling heart with pride. Be the fierce impulse of his rage obeyed, our battles let him or desert aid. Then let him arm when Jove or he think fit, that to his madness or to heaven commit. What for ourselves we can is always ours. This night, let due repast refresh our powers, for strength consists in spirits and blood, and those are owed to generous wine and food winky face. But when the rosy messenger day strikes the blue mountains with her golden ray, range at the ships, let all our squadrons shine in flaming arms, a long extended line. In the dread front let great Atrides stand, the first in danger as in high command. Shouts of acclaim the listening heroes raise, then each to heaven the due libations pays, till sleep, descending o'er the tents, bestows the grateful blessings of desired repose at Achilles. Book X, Argument. The night adventure of Diomed and Ulysses, upon the refusal of Achilles to return to the army. The distress of Agamemnon is described in the most lively manner. He takes no rest that night, but passes through the camp, awaking the leaders and contriving all possible methods for the public safety. Menelaus, Nestor, Ulysses, and Diomed are employed in raising the rest of the captains. They call a council of war and determine to send scouts into the enemy's camp, to learn their posture and discover their intentions. Diomed undertakes this hazardous enterprise, and makes choice of Ulysses for his companion. In their passage they surprise Dolon, whom Hector had sent on a like design to the camp of the Grecians. From him they are informed of the situation of the Trojan and auxiliary forces, and particularly of Rhesus, and the Thracians who were lately arrived. They pass on with success, kill Rhesus, with several of his officers, and seize the famous horses of that prince, with which they return in triumph to the camp. The same night continues. The scene lies in the two camps. All night the chiefs before their vessels lay, and lost in sleep the labors of the day, all but the king. With various thoughts oppress his country's cares lay rolling in his breast. As when by lightnings Jove's ethereal power foretells a rattling hail or weighty shower, or sends soft snows to whiten all the shore, or bids the brazen throat of war to roar, by fits one flash succeeds as one expires, and heaven flames thick with momentary fires. So bursting frequent from Atrides' breast, sighs following sighs as inward fears confessed. Now o'er the fields dejected he surveys from 1,000 Trojan fires the mounting blaze, hears in the passing wind their music blow, and marks distinct the voices of the foe. Now looking backwards to the fleet and coast, anxious he sorrows for the endangered host. He rends his hair in sacrifice to Jove, and sues to him that ever lives above. Inly he groans, while glory and despair divide his heart and wage a double war. 1,000 cares his laboring breast revolves. To seek sage Nestor now the chief resolves, with him, in wholesome counsels, to debate what yet remains to save the afflicted state. He rose, and first he cast his mantle round, next on his feet the shining sandals bound. A lion's yellow spoils his back concealed, his warlike hand a pointed javelin held. Meanwhile his brother, pressed with equal woes, alike denied the gifts of soft repose, laments for Greece, than his cause before so much had suffered and must suffer more. A leopard-spotted hide his shoulders spread, a brazen helmet glittered on his head. Thus, with a javelin in his hand, he went to wake Atrides in the royal tent, already waked. Atrides he descried, his armor buckling at his vessel's side. Joyful they met. The Spartan thus begun, "Why puts my brother his bright armor on? Sends he some spy, amidst these silent hours, to try yon camp and watch the Trojan powers? But say, what hero shall sustain that task? Such bold exploits uncommon courage ask. Guideless, alone, through night's dark shade to go, and midst a hostile camp explore the foe." To whom the king, "In such distress we stand, no vulgar counsel our affairs demand. Greece to preserve is now no easy part, but asks high wisdom, deep design, and art. For Jove, a verse, our humble prayer denies, and bows his head to Hector's sacrifice. What eye has witnessed, or what ear believed, in one great day, by one great arm achieved, such wondrous deeds as Hector's hand has done, and we beheld the last revolving sun. What honors the beloved of Jove adorn, sprung from no god, and of no god is born. Yet such as acts, as Greeks unborn shall tell, and curse the battle where their fathers fell. Now speed thy hasty course along the fleet. They're called great Ajax and the Prince of Crete. Ourself the hoary Nestor will repair, to keep the guards on duty be his care. For Nestor's influence best that quarter guides, whose son with Marion o'er the watch presides. To whom the Spartan, "These thy orders borne, say, shall I stay, or with dispatch return?" "There shall thou stay," the king of men replied, "else may we miss to meet, without a guide, the paths so many and the camp so wide. Still, With your voice the slothful soldiers raise, urged by their fathers fame their future praise. Forget we now our state and lofty birth. Not titles here, but works must prove our worth. To labor is the lot of man below, and when Jove gave us life, he gave us woe. This said, each parted to his several cares. The king to Nestor's sable ship repairs. The sage protector of the Greeks he found stretched in his bed with all his arms around, the various-colored scarf, the shield he rears, the shining helmet and the pointed spears, the dreadful weapons of the warrior's rage, that, old in arms, disdain the peace of age. Then, leaning on his hand his watchful head, the hoary monarch raised his eyes and said, "What art thou speak, that on designs unknown, while others sleep, thus reigns the camp alone? Seek'st thou some friend or nightly sentinel? Stand off, approach not, but thy purpose tell." "O son of Neleus," thus the king rejoined, "pride of the Greeks, and glory of thy kind, lo, here the wretched Agamemnon stands, the unhappy general of the Grecian bands, whom Jove decrees with daily cares to bend, and woes, that only with his life shall end. Scarce can my knees these trembling limbs sustain, and scarce my heart support its load of pain. No taste of sleep these heavy eyes have known, confused and sad. I wander thus alone, with fears distracted, with no fixed design, and all my people's miseries are mine. If aught of use thy waking thoughts suggest, since cares like mine deprive thy soul of rest, impart thy counsel and assist thy friend. Now let us jointly to the trench descend, at every gate the fainting guard excite, tired with the toils of day and watch of night. Else may the sudden foe our works invade, so near and favored by the gloomy shade. To him thus Nestor: "Trust the powers above, nor think proud Hector's hopes confirmed by Jove. How ill agree the views of vain mankind, and the wise counsels of the eternal mind. Audacious Hector! If the gods ordain that great Achilles rise and rage again, what toils attend thee, and what woes remain? Lo, faithfulness of thy command obeys. The cares next our other chiefs to raise. Ulysses dimed we chiefly need, Meges for strength, Oileus famed for speed. Some other be dispatched of nimbler feet to those tall ships remotest of the fleet, where lie great Ajax and the king of Crete. To rouse the Spartan I myself decree. Dear as he is to us, and dear to thee, yet must I tax his sloth, that claims no share of his great brother in his martial care. Him it behoved to every chief to sue, preventing every part performed by you. For strong necessity our toils demands, claims all our hearts, and urges all our hands. To whom the king: "With reverence we allow thy just rebukes, yet learn to spare them now. My generous brother is a gentle kind, he seems remiss, but bears a valiant mind. Through too much deference to our sovereign sway, content to follow when we lead the way. But now, our ills industrious prevent, long ere the rest he rose, and sought my tent. The chiefs you named, already at his call, prepare to meet us near the navy wall, assembling there, between the trench and gates, near the night guards, our chosen council waits." Then none, said Nestor, shall his rule withstand, for great examples justify command. With that, the venerable warrior rose, the shining greaves his manly legs enclose, his purple mantle golden buckles joined, warm with the softest wool and doubly lined. Then rushing from his tent, he snatched in haste his steely lance, that lightened as he passed. The camp he traversed through the sleeping crowd, stopped at Ulysses' tent, and called aloud. Ulysses, sudden as a voice was sent, awakes, starts up, and issues from his tent. What new distress, what sudden cause of fright, thus leads you wandering in the silent night? O prudent chief, the Pylian sage replied, wise as thou art, be now thy wisdom tried. Whatever means of safety can be sought, whatever counsels can inspire our thought, whatever methods or to fly or fight, all depend on this important night. He heard, returned, and took his painted shield, then joined the chiefs and followed to the field. Without his tent, bold Dime they found, all sheathed in arms, his brave companions round. Each sunk in sleep, extended on the field, his head reclining on his bossy shield. A wood of spears stood by, that, fixed upright, shot from their flashing points a quivering light. A bull's black hide composed the hero's bed, a splendid carpet rolled beneath his head. Then, with his foot, old Nestor gently shakes the slumbering chief, and in these words awakes, Rise, son of Tydeus, To the brave and strong rest seems inglorious, and the night too long. But sleep'st thou now, when from yon hill the foe hangs o'er the fleet, and shades our walls below? At this, soft slumber from his eyelids fled. The warrior saw the hoary chief, and said, "Wondrous old man, whose soul no respite knows, though years and honors bid thee seek repose, let younger Greeks our sleeping warriors wake. Ill fits thy age these toils to undertake." "My friend," he answered, "generous as I care, these toils my subjects and my sons might bear. Their loyal thoughts and pious love conspire to ease a sovereign and relieve a sire. But now the last despair surrounds our host. No hour must pass, no moment must be lost. Each single Greek, in this conclusive strife, stand on the sharpest edge of death or life. Yet, if my years thy kind regard engage, employ thy youth as I employ my age. Succeed to these my cares, and rouse the rest. He serves me most, who serves his country best." This said, the hero o'er his shoulders flung a lion's spoils that to his ankles hung, then seized his ponderous lance and strode along. Meges the bold, with Ajax famed for speed, the warrior roused, and to the entrenchments lead. And now the chiefs approached the nightly guard, a wakeful squadron, each in arms prepared. The unwearied watch their listening leaders keep, and, couching close, repel invading sleep. So faithful dogs their fleecy charge maintain, with toil protected from the prowling train. When the gaunt lioness, with hunger bold, springs from the mountains toward the guarded fold, through breaking woods her rustling course they hear. Loud and more loud, the clamors strike their ear of hounds and men. They start, they gaze around, watch every side, and turn every sound. Thus watched the Grecians, cautious of surprise. Each voice, each motion, drew their ears and eyes. Each step of passing feet increased the affright, and hostile Troy was ever full in sight. Nestor with joy the wakeful band surveyed, and thus accosted through the gloomy shade. "'Tis well, my sons, your nightly cares employ, else must our host become the scorn of Troy. Watch thus, and Greece shall live." The hero said. Then o'er the trench the following chieftains led. His son and godlike Marion marched behind, for these the princes to their council joined. The trenches passed, the assembled kings around in silent state the consistory crowned. A place there was, yet undefiled with gore, the spot where Hector stopped his rage before, when night descending from his vengeful hand reprieved the relics of the Grecian band. The plain beside with mangled core was spread, and all his progress marked by heaps of dead. There sat the mournful kings. When Neleus' son, the council opening, in these words begun, "Is there," said he, "a chief so greatly brave, his life to hazard his country save? Lives there a man, who singly dares to go to yonder camp, or seize some straggling foe, or favored by the night approach so near, their speech, their counsels, and designs to hear? If to besiege our navies they prepare, or Troy once more must be the seat of war. This could he learn, and to our peers recite, and pass unharmed the dangers of night. What fame were through all succeeding days, while Phoebus shines, or men have tongues to praise. What gifts his grateful country would bestow. What must not Greece to her deliverer owe? A sable you each leader should provide. With each a sable lambkin by her side. At every rite his share should be increased, and as the foremost honors of the feast. Fear held him mute, alone, untaught to fear. Tie-dyed spoke, "The man you seek is here, through yon black camps to bend my dangerous way. Some god within commands, and I obey. But let some other chosen warrior join, to raise my hopes and second my design. By mutual confidence and mutual aid, great deeds are done and great discoveries made. The wise new prudence from the wise acquire, and one brave hero fans another's fire." Contending leaders of the word arose. Each generous breast with emulation glows. So brave a task each Ajax strove to share. Bold Marion strove, and Nestor's valiant heir. The Spartan wished the second place to gain, and great Ulysses wished, nor wished in vain. Then thus the king of men the contest ends. Thou first of warriors, and our best of friends, undaunted Diamond. What chief to join in this great enterprise is only thine. Just be thy choice without affection made. To birth or office no respect be paid. Let word determine here. The monarch spake, and inly trembled for his brother's sake. Then thus the godlike Diamond rejoined, "My choice declares the impulse of my mind. How can I doubt? while great Ulysses stands to lend his counsels and assist our hands. A chief whose safety is Minerva's care, so famed, so dreadful in the works of war. Blessed in his conduct, I no aid require. Wisdom like his might pass through flames of fire. It fits thee not, before these chiefs of fame, replied the sage, to praise me or to blame. Praise from friend or censure from foe are lost on hearers that our merits know. But let us haste. Night rolls the hours away. The reddening orient shows the coming day. The stars shine faint on the ethereal plains, and of night's empire but a third remains. Thus having spoke, with generous ardor pressed, in arms terrific their huge limbs they dressed. A two-edged falchion Thrasym the brave an ample buckler to Tydides gave. Then in a leathern helm he cased his head, sure of its crest and with no plume o'erspread, such as by youths in use the arms are worn. No spoils enrich it, and no studs adorn. Next him Ulysses took a shining sword, a bow and quiver, with bright arrows stored, a well-proved casque, with leather braces bound, thy gift Merion's, his temples crowned, soft wool within. Without, in order spread a boar's white teeth grin horrid o'er his head. This from a Mentor, rich Ormond his son, Autolycus by fraudful rapine won, and gave Amphidamas. From him the prize Molus received, the pledge of social ties. The helmet next by Merion was possessed, and now Ulysses' thoughtful temples pressed. Thus sheathed in arms, the counsel they forsake, and dark through paths oblique their progress take. Just then, in sign she favored their intent, a long-winged heron great Minerva sent. This, though surrounding shades obscured their view, by the shrill clang and whistling wings they knew. As from a right she soared, Ulysses prayed, hailed a glad omen, and addressed the maid, O daughter of that god whose arm can wield the avenging bolt, and shake the saber shield. O thou, for ever present in my way, who all my motions, all my toils survey. Safe may we pass beneath the gloomy shade, safe by thy succor to our ships conveyed, and let some deed this signal night adorn, to claim the tears of Trojans yet unborn. Then godlike Dian preferred his prayer, Daughter of Jove, unconquered Pallas, hear, great queen of arms, whose favor Tydeus won, as thou defends the sire, defend the son. When on Aesopus' banks the banded powers of Greece he left, and sought the Theban towers, peace was his charge. Received with peaceful show, he went a legate, but returned a foe. Then helped by thee, and covered by thy shield, he fought with numbers, and made numbers yield. So now be present, O celestial maid, so still continue to the race thine aid. A youthful steer shall fall beneath the stroke, untamed, unconscious of the galling yoke, with ample forehead, and with spreading horns, whose taper tops refulgent gold adorns. The heroes prayed, and Pallas from the skies accords their vow, succeeds their enterprise. Now, like two lions panting for the prey, with dreadful thoughts they trace the dreary way, through the black horrors of the ensanguined plain, through dust, through blood, o'er arms and hills of slain. Nor less bold Hector and the sons of Troy on high designs the wakeful hours employ. The assembled peers their lofty chief enclosed, who thus the counsels of his breast propose. What glorious man, for high attempt prepared, dares greatly venture for a rich reward? Of yonder fleet a bold discovery make, what watch they keep, and what resolve they take. If now subdued they meditate their flight, and, spent with toil, neglect the watch of night, his be the chariot that shall please him most of all the plunder the vanquished host. His the fair steeds that all the rest excel, and is a glory to have served so well. A youth there was among the tribes of Troy, Dolon his name, Eumedes' only boy, 5 girls beside the reverend herald told. Rich was the son in brass, and rich in gold, not blessed by nature with the charms of face, but swift of foot and matchless in the race. Hector, he said, my courage bids me meet this high achievement and explore the fleet, but first exalt thy scepter to skies, and swear to grant me the demanded prize, the immortal coursers and the glittering car, that bear Pelides through the ranks of war. Encourage thus, no idle scout I go, fulfill thy wish, their whole intention know, even to the royal tent pursue my way, and all their counsels, all their aims betray. The chief then heaved the golden scepter high, attesting thus the monarch of the sky. Be witness thou, immortal lord of all, whose thunder shakes the dark aerial hall. By none but Dolon shall this prize be borne, and him alone the immortal steeds adorn. Thus Hector swore. The gods were called in vain, but the rash youth prepares to scour the plain. Across his back the bended bow he flung, a wolf's grey hide around his shoulders hung, a ferret's downy for his helmet lined, and in his hand a pointed javelin shined. Then, never to return, he sought the shore, and trod the path his feet must tread no more. Scarce had he passed the steeds and Trojan throng, still bending forward as he coursed along, when on the hollow way the approaching tread Ulysses marked, and thus dimed, "O friend, I hear some step of hostile feet, moving this way, or hastening to the fleet. Some spy, perhaps, to lurk beside the main, or nightly pillager that strips the slain. Yet let him pass and win a little space, then rush behind him and prevent his pace. But if too swift of foot he flies before, confine his course along the fleet and shore. Betwixt the camp and him our spears employ, and intercept his hope return to Troy." With that they stepped aside and stooped their head as Dolon passed. Behind a heap of dead, along the path the spy unwary flew. Soft, at just distance, both the chiefs pursue. So distant they, and such the space between, as when two teams of mules divide the green, to whom the hind like shares of land allows, when now new furrows part the approaching plows. Now Dolon, listening, heard them as they passed. Hector, he thought, had sent and checked his haste, till scarce at distant a javelin's throw, no voice succeeding, he perceived the foe, as when two skilful hounds a leveret wind, or chase the woods obscure the trembling hind. Now lost, now seen, they intercept his way, and from the herd still turn the flying prey. So fast and with such fears the Trojan flew, so close, so constant, the bold Greeks pursue. Now almost on a fleet the dastard falls, and mingles with the guard that watch the walls. When brave Tydides stopped, a gen-roused thought, inspired by Pallas, in his bosom wrought, lest on foe some forward Greek advance, and snatch the glory from his lifted lance. Then thus aloud, "Whoe'er thou art remain, this javelin else shall fix thee to plain." He said, and high in air the weapon cast, which wilful aired, and o'er his shoulder passed, then fixed in earth. Against the trembling with the wretch stood propped, and quivered as he stood. A sudden palsy seized his turning head. His loose teeth chattered, and his color fled. The panting warriors seize him as he stands, and with unmanly tears his life demands. "Oh, spare my youth, and for the breath I owe, large gifts of price my father shall bestow. Vast heaps of brass shall on your ships be told, and steel well-tempered and refulgent gold." To whom Ulysses made this wise reply, "Whoe'er thou art, be bold, nor fear to die. What moves thee, say, when sleep has closed the sight, to roam the silent fields in dead of night? Camest thou the secrets of our camp to find, by Hector prompted, or thy daring mind? Or art some wretch by hopes of plunder led, through heaps of carnage, to despoil the dead?" Then thus pale Dolon, with a fearful look, still as he spoke, his limbs with horror shook. "Hither I came, by Hector's words deceived. Much did he promise, rashly I believed. No less a bribe in great Achilles' car, and those swift steeds that sweep the ranks of war, urge me, unwilling, this attempt to make, to learn what counsels, what resolves you take. If now subdued, you fix your hopes on flight, and, tired with toils, neglect the watch of night. Bold was thy aim, and glorious was the prize," Ulysses with a scornful smile replies. "Far other rulers those proud steeds demand, and scorn the guidance of vulgar hand. Even great Achilles scarce their rage can tame, Achilles sprung from an immortal dame. But say, be faithful, and the truth recite, where lies encamped the Trojan chief tonight, where stand his coursers, in what quarter sleep their other princes. Tell what watch they keep. Say, since this conquest, what their counsels are, or here to combat, from their city far, or back to Ilion's walls transfer the war." Ulysses thus, and thus Eumede's son, what Dolon knows, his faithful tongue shall own. Hector, the peers assembling in his tent, a council holds at Elos monument. No certain guard the nightly watch partake. Where'er yon fires ascend, the Trojans wake. Anxious at Troy, the guard the natives keep, safe in their cares. The auxiliary forces sleep, whose wives and infants, from the danger far, discharge their souls of half the fears of war. "Then sleep those aids among the Trojan train?" inquired the chief, "or scattered o'er the plain?" To whom the spy, "Their powers they thus dispose the Paeans, dreadful with their bended bows, The Carians, Caucans, the Pelasgian host, and Leleges encamp along the coast. Not distant far, lie higher on the land the Lycian, Mysian, and Meonian band, and Phrygia's horse, by Thymbra's ancient wall, the Thracians' utmost, and apart from all. These Troy but lately to her succor won, led on by Rhesus, great Ionia's son. I saw his coursers in proud triumph go, swift as a wind and white as winter snow. Rich silver plates his shining car enfold, his solid arms refulgent, flame with gold. No mortal shoulders suit the glorious load, celestial panoply, to grace a god. Let me, unhappy, to your fleet be borne, or leave me here, a captive's fate to mourn, in cruel chains, till your return reveal the truth or falsehood of the news I tell. To this Tydides with a gloomy frown, think not to live, though all the truth be shown. Shall we dismiss thee, in some future strife to risk more bravely thy now forfeit life? Or that again our camps thou mayst explore? No, once a traitor, thou betray'st no more. Sternly he spoke, and as a wretch prepared with humble blandishment to stroke his beard, like lightning swift a wrathful falchion flew, divides a neck, and cuts the nerves in two. One instant snatched his trembling soul to hell, the head, yet speaking, muttered as it fell. The furry helmet from his brow they tear, the wolf's grey hide, the unbended bow and spear. These great Ulysses lifting to skies, to favouring Pallas dedicate surprise. Great Queen of Arms, receive this hostile spoil, and let the Thracian steeds reward our toil. Thee, first of all the heavenly host, we praise. O speed our labours and direct our ways. This said, the spoils, with dropping gore defaced, high on a spreading tamarisk he placed, then heaped with reeds and gathered boughs a plain, to guide their footsteps to the place again. Through the still night they crossed the devious fields, slippery with blood, o'er arms and heaps of shields, arriving where the Thracian squadrons lay, and ease and sleep the labours of the day. Ranged in 3 lines they view the prostrate band, the horses yoked beside each warrior stand. Their arms in order on the ground reclined, through the brown shade the fulgid weapons shined. Amidst lay Rhesus, stretched in sleep profound, and the white steed behind his chariot bound. The welcome sight Ulysses first descries, and points to Dium the tempting prize. The man, the coursers, and the car behold, described by Dolon with the arms of gold. Now, brave Tydides, now thy courage try. Approach the chariot and the steeds untie, or thy soul aspire to fiercer deeds. Urge thou the slaughter, while I seize the steeds. Pallas, this said, her hero's bosom warms, breathed in his heart, and strung his nervous arms. Where'er he passed, a purple stream pursued his thirsty falchion, fat with hostile blood, bathed all his footsteps, dyed the fields with gore, and a low groan remurmured to the shore. So the grim lion, from his nightly den, o'erleaps the fences, and invades a pen on sheep or goats. Resistless his way, he falls, and foaming rends a guardless prey. Nor stopped the fury of his vengeful hand, till 12 lay breathless of the Thracian band. Ulysses following, as his partner slew, back by the foot each slaughtered warrior drew. The milk-white courser studious to convey safe to the ships, he wisely cleared the way, lest the fierce steeds, not yet to battles bred, should start and tremble at the heaps of dead. Now 12 dispatched, the monarch Lasse found. Tydides' falchion fixed him to the ground. Just then a deathful dream in nerve ascent. A warlike form appeared before his tent, whose visionary steel his bosom tore. So dreamed the monarch and awaked no more. Ulysses now the snowy steeds attains, and leads them, fastened by the silver reins. These, with his bow unbent, he lashed along. The scourge forgot, on Rhesus' chariot hung winky face. Then gave his friend the signal to retire. But him, new dangers, new achievements fire. Doubtful he stood, or with his reeking blade to send more heroes to the infernal shade, drag off the car where Rhesus' armor lay, or heave with manly force and lift away. While unresolved the son of Tydeus stands, Pallas appears, and thus her chief commands. Enough, my son, from further slaughter cease, regard thy safety, and depart in peace. Haste the ships, the gotten spoils enjoy, nor tempt too far the hostile gods of Troy. The voice divine confessed a martial maid. In haste he mounted, and her word obeyed. The coursers fly before Ulysses' bow, swift as the wind and white as winter snow. Not unobserved they passed. The god of light had watched his Troy, and marked Minerva's flight. saw Tydeus' son with heavenly succor blessed, and vengeful anger filled his sacred breast. Swift to the Trojan camp descends a power, and wakes Hippocoon in the morning hour. On Rhesus' side, accustomed to attend, a faithful kinsman and instructive friend Winky Face. He rose and saw the field deformed with blood, an empty space where late the coursers stood, the yet warm Thracians panting on the coast. For each he wept, but for his Rhesus most. Now while on Rhesus' name he calls in vain, the gathering tumult spreads o'er all the plain. On heaps the Trojans rush, with wild affright, and wondering view the slaughters of the night. Meanwhile the chiefs, arriving at the shade where late the spoils of Hector's spy were laid, Ulysses stopped. To him Tydides bore the trophy, dropping yet with Dolon's gore. Then mount again their nimbler feet the coursers ply, and thunder towards the fleet. Diom and Ulysses return with the spoils of Rhesus. Old Nestor first perceived the approaching sound. Bespeaking thus the Grecian peers around. Methinks the noise of trampling steeds I hear, thickening this way, and gathering on my ear, perhaps some horses of the Trojan breed. So may ye gods my pious hope succeed. The great Tydides and Ulysses bear, return triumphant with this prize of war. Yet much I fear, may that fear be vain. The chiefs outnumbered by the Trojan train. Perhaps, even now pursued, they seek the shore. Or, perhaps those heroes are no more. Scarce had he spoke, when lo, the chiefs appear and spring to earth. The Greeks dismiss their fear. With word of friendship and extended hands they greet the kings, and Nestor first demands. Say thou, whose praises all our hosts proclaim, thou living glory of the Grecian name. Say whence these coursers? By what chance bestowed the spoil of foes, or present of a god? Not those fair steeds, so radiant and so gay, that draw the burning chariot of the day. Old as I am, to age I scorn to yield, and daily mingle in the martial field. But sure till now no coursers struck my sight like these, conspicuous through the ranks of fight. Some god, I deem, conferred the glorious prize, blessed as ye are in favors of the skies. The care of him who bids the thunder roar, and her, whose fury bathes the world with gore. Father, not so, sage Ithacus rejoined. The gifts of heaven are of a nobler kind. Of Thracian lineage are the steeds ye view, whose hostile king the brave Tydides slew. Sleeping he died, with all his guards around, and 12 beside lay gasping on the ground. These other spoils from conquered Dolon came, a wretch whose swiftness was his only fame. By Hector sent our forces to explore, he now lies headless on the sandy shore. Then o'er the trench the bounding coursers flew. The joyful Greeks with loud acclaim pursue. Straight to Tydides' high pavilion borne, the matchless steeds his ample stalls adorn. The neighing coursers their new fellows greet, and the full racks are heaped with generous wheat. But Dolon's armor, to his ships conveyed, high on the painted stern Ulysses laid, a trophy destined to the blue-eyed maid. Now from nocturnal sweat and sanguine stain, they cleanse their bodies in the neighboring main. Then in the polished bath, refreshed from toil, their joints they supple with dissolving oil. In due repast indulge the genial hour, and first the palace libations pour. They sit, rejoicing in her aid divine, and the crowned goblet foams with floods of wine. Book XI. Argument the third battle, and the acts of Agamemnon. Agamemnon, having armed himself, leads the Grecians to battle. Hector prepares the Trojans to receive them, while Jupiter, Juno, and Minerva give the signals of war. Agamemnon bears all before him, and Hector is commanded by Jupiter, who sends Iris for that purpose, to decline the engagement, till the king shall be wounded and retire from field. He then makes a great slaughter of the enemy. Ulysses and Diom put a stop to him for a time, but the latter, being wounded by Paris, is obliged to desert his companion, who is encompassed by the Trojans, wounded, and in the utmost danger, till Menelaus and Ajax rescue him. Hector comes against Ajax, but that hero alone opposes multitudes, and rallies the Greeks. In the meantime Machaon, in the other wing of the army, is pierced with an arrow by Paris, and carried from the fight in Nestor's chariot. Achilles, who overlooked the action from his ship, sent Patroclus to inquire which of the Greeks was wounded in that manner. Nestor entertains him in his tent with an account of the accidents of the day, and a long recital of some former wars which he remembered, tending to put Patroclus upon persuading Achilles to fight for his countrymen, or at least to permit him to do it. Clad in Achilles' armor, Patroclus, on his return, meets Eurypylus also wounded, and assists him in that distress. This book opens with the 8 and 20th day of the poem, and the same day, with its various actions and adventures, is extended to the 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, and part of the 18th books. The scene lies in the field near the monument of Elos. The saffron morn, with early blushes spread, now rose refulgent from Nathana's bed, with new-born day to gladden mortal sight, and gild the courts of heaven with sacred light. When baleful Eris, sent by Jove's command, the torch of discord blazing in her hand, through the red skies her bloody sign extends, and, wrapped in tempest, o'er the fleet descends. High on Ulysses' bark her horrid stand she took, and thundered through the seas and land. Even Ajax and Achilles heard the sound, whose ships remote the guarded navy bound. Thence the black fury through Grecian throng with horror sound a loud Orthian song. The navy shakes, and at the dire alarms each bosom boils. Each warrior starts to arms. No more they sigh, inglorious to return, but breathe revenge and for the combat burn. The descent of Discord, the king of men, his hardy host inspires, with loud command, with great example fires. Himself first rose, himself before the rest his mighty limbs in radiant armor dressed, and first he cased his manly legs around in shining greaves with silver buckles bound. The beaming cuirass next adorned his breast, the same which once King Cinyras possessed. The fame of Greece and her assembled host had reached that monarch on the Cyprian coast. 'Twas then, the friendship of the chief to gain, this glorious gift he sent, nor sent in vain. 10 rows of azure steel to work and fold, twice 10 of tin and 12 of ductile gold. 3 glittering dragons to the gorget rise, whose imitated scales against the skies reflected various light, and arching bowed, like colored rainbows o'er a showery cloud, Jove's wondrous bow. Of 3 celestial dyes, places assigned to man amidst the skies. A radiant baldric, o'er his shoulder tied, sustained the sword that glittered at his side. Gold was the hilt, a silver sheath encased the shining blade, and golden hangers graced. His buckler's mighty orb was next displayed, that round the warrior cast a dreadful shade. 10 zones of brass its ample brim surround, and twice 10 bosses the bright convex crowned. Tremendous Gorgon frowned upon its field, and circling terrors filled the expressive shield. Within its concave hung a silver thong, on which a mimic serpent creeps along. His azure length in easy waves extends, till in 3 heads the embroidered monster ends. Last o'er his brows his fourfold helm he placed, with nodding horsehair formidably graced. And in his hands 2 steely javelins wields, that blaze to heaven and lighten all the fields. That instant Juno and the martial maid, in happy thunders promised Greece their aid. High o'er the chief they clash their arms in air, and, leaning from the clouds, expect a war. Close to the limits of the trench and mound, the fiery coursers to their chariots bound, the squires restrained. The foot, with those who wield the lighter arms, rush forward to the field. To second these, in close array combined, the squadrons spread their sable wings behind. Now shouts and tumults wake the tardy sun, as with the light the warriors' toils begun. Even Jove, whose thunder spoke his wrath, distilled red drops of blood o'er all the fatal field, the woes of men unwilling to survey, and all the slaughters that must stain the day. Near Elos' tomb, in order ranged around, the Trojan lines possess a rising ground. Their wise Polydamas and Hector stood, Aeneas, honor as a guardian god, bold Polybus, and Juno the divine, the brother warriors of Antenor's line, with youthful Acamas, whose beauteous face and fair proportion matched the ethereal race. Great Hector, covered with his spacious shield, plies all the troops and orders all the field. As the red star now shows his sanguine fires to the dark clouds, and now in night retires, thus through the ranks appeared the godlike man, plunged in the rear or blazing in the van, while streamy sparkles, restless as he flies, flash from his arms as lightning from the skies. As sweating reapers in some wealthy field, ranged in 2 bands, their crooked weapons wield, bear down the furrows, till their labors meet. Thick fall the heapy harvest at their feet. So Greece and Troy the field of war divide, and falling ranks are strode on every side. None stoop to thought debasing glorious flight, but horse to horse, and man to man they fight. Not rabid wolves more fierce contest their prey. Each wounds, each bleeds, but none resign the day. Discord with joy the scene of death descries, and drinks large slaughter at her sanguine eyes. Discord alone of all the immortal train, swells the red horrors of this direful plain. The gods in peace their golden mansions fill, range in bright order on the Olympian hill. But general murmurs toll their griefs above, and each accuse the partial will of Jove. Meanwhile apart, superior and alone, the eternal monarch, on his awful throne, wrapped in a blaze of boundless glory sate, and fixed, fulfilled the just decrees of fate. On earth he turned his all-considering eyes, and marked the spot where Ilion's towers arise. The sea with ships, the fields with armies spread, the victors rage, the dying and the dead. Thus while the morning beams, increasing bright, o'er heaven's pure azure spread the glowing light. Calm mutual death the fate of war confounds, each adverse battle gore with equal wounds. But now, what time in some sequestered vale the weary woodman spreads a sparing meal, when his tired arms refuse the axe to rear, and claim a respite from the sylvan war. But not till half the prostrate forest lay stretched in long ruin and exposed a day, then nor till then, the Greeks impulsive might pierce the black phalanx and lend the light. Great Agamemnon then the slaughter led, and slew Biener at his people's head, whose squire Oileus, with a sudden spring, leaped from the chariot to revenge his king, but in his front he felt a fatal wound, which pierced his brain and stretched him on the ground. Atrides spoiled and left them on the plain. Vain was their youth, their glittering armor vain, now soiled with dust and naked to the sky, their snowy limbs and beauteous bodies lie. 2 sons of Priam next to battle move, the product one of marriage, one of love. In the same car the brother warriors ride. This took the charge combat, that to guide. Far other task than when they want to keep on Ida's tops their father's fleecy sheep. These on the mountains once Achilles found, and captive led, with pliant osiers bound, then to their sire for ample sums restored. But now to perish by a tried sword. Pierced in the breast of base-born Isis bleeds. Cleft through the head his brother's fate succeeds. Swift to the spoil the hasty victor falls, and stripped, their features to his mind recalls. The Trojans see the youths untimely die, but helpless tremble for themselves and fly. So when a lion ranging o'er the lawns finds on some grassy lair the couching fawns, their bones he cracks, their reeking vitals draws, and grinds the quivering flesh with bloody jaws. The fright hind beholds and dares not stay, but swift through rustling thickets bursts her way, all drowned in sweat. The panting mother flies, and the big tears roll trickling from her eyes. Amidst the tumult of the routed train, the sons of false Animachus were slain. He who for bribes his faithless counsel sold, and voted Helen's stay for Paris gold. Atrides marked, as these their safety sought, and slew the children for father's fault. Their headstrong horse unable to restrain, they shook with fear, and dropped the silken rein. Then in the chariot on their knees they fall, and thus with lifted hands for mercy call. Oh, spare our youth, and for the life we owe, Animachus shall copious gifts bestow, soon as he hears that, not in battle slain, the Grecian ships his captive sons detain. Large heaps of brass and ransom shall be told, and steel well-tempered and persuasive gold. These words, attended with a flood of tears, the youths address unrelenting ears. The vengeful monarch gave this stern reply: If from Animachus ye spring, ye die. The daring wretch who once in council stood to shed Ulysses and my brother's blood for proffered peace, and sues his seed for grace? No, die, and pay the forfeit of your race. This said, Pisander from the car he cast, and pierced his breast. Supine he breathed his last. His brother leaped to earth, but as he lay, the trenchant falchion lopped his hands away. His severed head was tossed among the throng, and rolling, drew a bloody train along. Then, with the thickest fought, the victor flew. The king's example all his Greeks pursue. Now by the foot the flying foot were slain. Horse trod by horse lay foaming on the plain. From the dry fields thick clouds of dust arise, shade the black host, and intercept the skies. The brass-hoofed steeds tumultuous plunge and bound, and the thick thunder beats the laboring ground. Still slaughtering on, the king of men proceeds. The distant army wonders at his deeds, as when the winds with raging flames conspire, and o'er the forest roll the flood of fire. In blazing heaps the grove's old honors fall, and one refulgent ruin levels all. Before Atrides' rage so sinks the foe, whole squadrons vanish, and proud heads lie low. The steeds fly trembling from his waving sword, and many a car, now lighted of its lord, wide o'er the field with guideless fury rolls, breaking their ranks and crushing out their souls. while his keen falchion drinks the warriors' lives, more grateful now, to vultures and their wives. Perhaps great Hector then had found his fate, but Jove and destiny prolonged his date. Safe from the darts, the care of heaven he stood, amidst alarms and death and dust and blood. Now past the tomb where ancient Elos lay, through the midfield the routed urge their way. With the wild figs the adjoining summit crown, the path they take, and speed to reach the town. As swift, Atrides with loud shouts pursued, hot with his toil, and bathed in hostile blood. Now near the beech tree and the skiing gates, the hero halts and his associates waits. Meanwhile on every side around the plain, dispersed, disordered, fly the Trojan train. So flies a herd of beeves, that hear dismayed the lions roaring through the midnight shade. On heaps they tumble with successless haste. The savage seizes, draws, and rends a last. Not with less fury stern Atrides flew. Still presser out, and still the hindmost slew. Hurled from their cars the bravest chiefs are killed in rage and death, and carnage load the field. Now storms the victor at the Trojan wall, surveys the towers and meditates their fall. But Jove descending shook the Idaean hills, and down their summits poured 100 rills. The unkind led lightning in his hand he took, and thus the many-colored made bespoke. Iris, with haste thy golden wings display, to godlike Hector this our word convey. While Agamemnon wastes the ranks around, fights in the front, and bathes with blood the ground. Bid him give way, but issue forth commands, and trust the war to less important hands. But when o'erwounded by the spear or dart, that chief shall mount his chariot and depart. Then Jove shall string his arm and fire his breast. Then to her ships shall flying Greece be pressed, till the main the burning sun descend, and sacred night her awful shade extend. He spoke, and Iris at his word obeyed. On wings of winds descends a various maid. The chief she found amidst the ranks of war, close to the bulwarks, on his glittering car. The goddess then, O son of Priam, hear! From Jove I come, and his high mandate bear. While Agamemnon wastes the ranks around, fights in the front, and bathes with blood the ground. Abstain from fight, yet issue forth commands, and trust the war to less important hands. But when o'erwounded by the spear or dart, the chief shall mount his chariot and depart. Then Jove shall string thy arm and fire thy breast. Then to her ships shall flying Greece be pressed, till to main the burning sun descend, and sacred night her awful shade extend. She said, and vanished. Hector, with a bound, springs from his chariot on the trembling ground, in clanging arms. He grasps in either hand a pointed lance, and speeds from band to band, revives their ardor, turns their steps from flight, and wakes anew the dying flames of fight. They stand to arms. The Greeks their onset dare, condense their powers, and wait the coming war. New force, new spirit, to each breast returns. The fight renewed with fiercer fury burns. The king leads on, all fix on their eye, and learn from him to conquer or to die. Ye sacred 9, celestial muses, tell who face him first, and by his prowess fell? The great Iphidamas, the bold and young, from sage Antenor and Theano sprung, whom from his youth his grandsire Cisseus bred, and nurse in Thrace where snowy flocks are fed. Scarce to the down his rosy cheeks invest, and early honor warm his generous breast, when a kind sire consigned his daughter's charms, Theano's sister, to his youthful arms. But called by glory to the wars of Troy, he leaves untasted the first fruits of joy. From his loved bride departs with melting eyes, and swift to aid his dearer country flies. With 12 black ships he reached Percope's strand, thence took the long laborious march by land. Now fierce for fame, before the ranks he springs, towering in arms, and braves the king of kings. Atrides first discharged a missive spear. The Trojan stooped, the javelin passed in air. Then near the corslet of the monarch's heart, with all his strength, the youth directs his dart. But the broad belt, with plates of silver bound, the point rebaited and repelled the wound. Encumbered with the dart, Atrides stands, till, grasped with force, he wrenched it from his hands. At once his weighty sword discharged a wound full on his neck, that felled him to the ground. Stretched in the dust the unhappy warrior lies, and sleep eternal seals his swimming eyes. O worthy better fate! O early slain! Thy country's friend, and virtuous, though in vain. No more the youth shall join his consort's side, at once a virgin and at once a bride. No more with presents her embraces meet, or lay the spoils of conquest at her feet. on whom his passion, lavish of his store, bestowed so much and vainly promised more. Unwept, uncovered, on the plain he lay, while the proud victor bore his arms away. Coon, Antenor's eldest hope, was nigh. Tears at the sight came starting from his eye, while pierced with grief the much-loved youth he viewed, and the pale features now deformed with blood. Then, with his spear unseen, his time he took, aimed at the king, and near his elbow strook. The thrilling steel strands pierced the brawny part, and through his arm stood forth the barbed dart. Surprise the monarch feels, yet void of fear on Coon rushes with his lifted spear. His brother's corpse the pious Trojan draws, and calls his country to assert his cause. Defends him breathless on the sanguine field, and o'er the body spreads his ample shield. Atrides, marking an unguarded part, transfixed the warrior with his brazen dart. Prone on his brother's bleeding breast he lay. The monarch's falchion lopped his head away. The social shades the same dark journey go, and join each other in the realms below. The vengeful victor rages round the fields, with every weapon art or fury yields. By the long lance, the sword, or ponderous stone, whole ranks are broken, and whole troops o'erthrown. This, while yet warm, distilled the purple flood. But when the wound grew stiff with clotted blood, then grinding tortures his strong bosom rend, less keen those darts the fierce Ilithyes send. The powers that cause the teeming matron's throes, sad mothers of unutterable woes. Stung with the smart, all panting with the pain, he mounts the car, and gives the squire the rein. Then with a voice which fury made more strong, and pain augmented, thus exhorts the throng. O friends, O Greeks, assert your honors won. Proceed, and finish what this arm begun. Lo, angry Jove forbids your chief to stay, and envies half the glories of the day. He said, the driver whirls his lengthful thong, the horses fly, the chariot smokes along, clouds from their nostrils the fierce coursers blow, and from their sides the foam descends in snow. Shot through the battle in a moment's space, the wounded monarch at his tent they place. No sooner Hector saw the king retired, but thus his Trojans and his aids he fired. Here, all ye Dardan, all ye Lycian race, famed in close fight and dreadful face-to-face, now call to mind your ancient trophies won, your great forefathers' virtues, and your own. Behold, the general flies, deserts his powers. Lo, Jove himself declares the conquest ours. Now on yon ranks impel your foaming steeds, and, sure of glory, dare immortal deeds. With words like these a fiery chief alarms his fainting host, and every bosom warms. As the bold hunter cheers his hound to tear the brindled lion or the tusky bear, with voice and hand provokes their doubting heart, and springs the foremost with his lifted dart. So godlike Hector prompts his troops to dare, nor prompt alone, but leads himself to war. On the black body the foe he pours, as from the cloud's deep bosom, swell with showers, a sudden storm the purple ocean sweeps, drives the wild waves and tosses all the deeps. Say, Muse, when Jove the Trojans glory crowned, beneath his arm what heroes bit the ground. Asius, Dollops, and Audinus died. Opides next was added to their side. Then brave Hipponus, famed in many a fight, Opheltius, Orus, sunk to endless night. Esimnus, Agelos, all chiefs of name. The rest were vulgar deaths unknown to fame. As when a western whirlwind, charged with storms, dispels the gathered clouds at notice forms. The gust continued violent and strong, rolls sable clouds in heaps on heaps along. Now to the skies the foaming billows rears, now breaks the surge, and wide the bottom bears. Thus, raging Hector, with resistless hands, urns confounds and scatters all their bands. Now the last ruin the whole host appalls. Now Greece had trembled in her wooden walls. But wise Ulysses called Tydides forth, his soul rekindled and awaked his worth. And stand we deedless, O eternal shame, till Hector's arm involved the ships in flame? Haste, let us join and combat side by side. The warrior thus, and thus the friend replied, no martial toil I shun, no danger fear. Let Hector come, I wait his fury here. But Jove with conquest crowns a Trojan train, and Jove our foe all human force is vain. He sight, but, sighing, raised his vengeful steel, and from his car the proud Thymbraeus fell. Molion, the charioteer, pursued his lord, his death ennobled by Ulysses' sword. There slain, they left him in eternal night, then plunged amidst the thickest ranks of fight. So 2 wild boars outstrip the following hounds, then swift revert, and wounds return for wounds. Stern Hector's conquest in the middle plain stood checked a while, and Greece respired again. The sons of Merope shone amidst the war. Towering they rode in one refulgent car. In deep prophetic arts their father skilled, had warned his children from the Trojan field. Fate urged them on. The father warned in vain. They rushed to fight and perished on the plain. Their breasts no more the vital spirit warms. The stern tie-dyed strips their shining arms. Hypericus by great Ulysses dies, and rich Hippodamus becomes his prize. Great Jove from Ide with slaughter fills his sight, and level hangs the doubtful scale of fight. By Tydeus lance Agastophus was slain, the far-famed hero of Paeonian strain. Winged with his fears, on foot he strove to fly, his steeds too distant, and the foe too nigh. Through broken orders, swift in the wind he fled, but flying left his life behind. This Hector sees, as his experienced eyes traverse the files, and to the rescue flies, shouts as he passed, the crystal regions rend, and moving armies on his march attend. Great Diomede himself was seized with fear, and thus bespoke his brother the war. Mark how this way yon bending squadrons yield. The storm rolls on, and Hector rules the field. Here stand his utmost force. The warrior said, swift at the word his ponderous javelin fled, nor missed its aim, but where the plumage danced raised a smooth cone, and thence obliquely glanced. Safe in his helm, the gift of Phoebus' hands, without a wound the Trojan hero stands, but yet so stunned that, staggering on the plain, his arm and knee his sinking bulk sustain. O'er his dim sight the misty vapors rise, and a short darkness shades his swimming eyes. Tydides followed to regain his lance, while Hector rose, recovered from the trance, remounts his car, and herds amidst the crowd. The Greek pursues him and exults aloud. Once more thank Phoebus for thy forfeit breath, or thank that swiftness which outstrips the death. Well, by Apollo are thy prayers repaid, and oft that partial power has lent his aid. Thou shalt not long the death deserve withstand, if any god assist Tydides' hand. Fly then inglorious, but thy flight this day whole hecatombs of Trojan ghosts shall pay. Him, while he triumphed, Paris eyed from far, the spouse of Helen, the fair cause of war winky face. Around the fields his feathered shafts he sent, from ancient Elos' ruined monument. Behind column place he bent his bow, and winged an arrow at the unwary foe. Just as he stooped, Agastophus' crest to seize, and drew the courser from his breast, the bowstring twanged, nor flew the shaft in vain, but pierced his foot and nailed it to the plain. The laughing Trojan, with a joyful spring, leaps from his ambush, and insults the king. He bleeds, he cries, some god has sped my dart, with the same god had fixed it in his heart. So Troy, relieved from that wide-wasting hand, should breathe from slaughter and in combat stand, whose sons now tremble at his darted spear, as scattered lambs the rushing lion fear. He dauntless thus, thou conqueror the fair, thou woman warrior with the curling hair, vain archer, trusting to the distant dart, unskilled in arms to act a manly part. Thou hast but done what boys or women can. Such hands may wound, but not incense a man, nor boast a scratch thy feeble arrow gave. A coward's weapon never hurts the brave. Not so this dart, which thou mayst one day feel. Fate wings its flight, and death is on the steel. With this but lights, some noble life expires. Its touch makes orphans, bathes the cheeks of sires, steeps earth in purple, gluts the bird of air, and leaves such objects as distract the fair. Ulysses hastens with trembling heart. Before him steps, and bending draws a dart. Forth flows the blood, an eager pang succeeds. Tydides mounts, and to the navy speeds. Now on the field Ulysses stands alone. The Greeks all fled, the Trojans pouring on, but stand collected in himself and whole, and questions thus his own unconquered soul. What further subterfuge? What hopes remain? What shame, inglorious, if I quit the plain? What danger? Singly if I stand the ground, my friends all scattered, all the foes around. Yet wherefore doubtful? Let this truth suffice. The brave meets danger, and the coward flies. To die or conquer proves a hero's heart, and, knowing this, I know a soldier's part. Such thoughts revolving in his careful breast, near and more near, the shady cohorts pressed. These, in the warrior, their own fate enclose, and round him deep the steely circle grows. So fares a boar whom all the troop surrounds of shouting huntsmen and clamorous hounds. He grinds his ivory tusks, he foams with ire, his sanguine eyeballs glare with living fire. By these, by those, on every part is plied, and the red slaughter spreads on every side. Pierced through the shoulder, first Eopus fell, next Ennemus until it sank to hell. Chersidamas, beneath the naval thrust, falls prone to earth and grasps the bloody dust. Charops, the son of Hippasus, was near. Ulysses reached with a fatal spear. But to his aid his brother Socus flies, Socus the brave, the generous, and the wise. Near as he drew, the warrior thus began, "O great Ulysses, much enduring man, not deeper skilled in every martial sleight, than worn the toils and active in the fight. This day, too, brother, shall thy conquest grace, and end at once the great Hippasian race, or thou beneath this lance must press the field," he said, and forceful pierced the spacious shield. Through the strong brass the ringing javelin thrown, ploughed half his side, and bared it to the bone. By Pallas' care the spear, though deep infixed, stopped short of life, nor with his entrails mixed. The wound not mortal wise Ulysses knew, then furious thus, but first some steps withdrew, unhappy man, whose death our hand shall grace. Fate calls thee hence, and finished is thy race. Nor longer check my conquest on the foe, but, pierced by this, to endless darkness go, and add one spectre to the realms below. He spoke, while Socus, seized with sudden fright, trembling gave way, and turned his back to flight. Between his shoulders pierced the following dart, and held its passage to the panting heart. Wide in his breast appeared the grisly wound. He falls, his armor rings against the ground. Then thus Ulysses, gazing on the slain, famed son of Hippasus, there pressed the plain. Their ends thy narrow span assigned by fate. Heaven owes Ulysses yet a longer date. Ah, wretch! No father shall thy corpse compose, thy dying eyes no tender mother close, but hungry birds shall tear those balls away, and hovering vultures scream around their prey. Me Greece shall honor, when I meet my doom, with solemn funerals and a lasting tomb. Then raging with intolerable smart, he rides his body and extracts the dart. The dart a tide of spouting gore pursued, and gladdened Troy with sight of hostile blood. Now troops on troops the fainting chief invade. Force he recedes, and loudly calls for aid. Thrice to its pitch's lofty voice he rears. The well-known voice thrice Menelaus hears. Alarmed, to Ajax Telamon he cried, who shares his labors and defends his side. "O friend!" Ulysses' shouts invade my ear. Distressed he seems, and no assistance near. Strong as he is, yet one opposed to all. Oppressed by multitudes, the best may fall. Greece robbed of him must bid her host despair, and feel a loss not ages can repair. Then with a cry directs his course he bends. Great Ajax, like the god of war, attends. The prudent chief in sore distress they found, with bands of furious Trojans compass round. As when some huntsman, with a flying spear, from the blind thicket wounds a stately deer. Down his cleft side, while fresh the blood distills, he bounds aloft, and scuds from hills to hills, till life's warm vapor issuing through the wound, while mountain wolves the fainting beast surround. Just as her jaws his prostrate limbs invade, the lion rushes through the woodland shade. The wolves, though hungry, scour dispersed away. The lordly savage vindicates his prey. Ulysses thus, unconquered by his pains, a single warrior half a host sustains. But soon as Ajax leaves his tower-like shield, the scattered crowds fly fright o'er the field. Atrides' arm the sinking hero stays, and, saved from numbers, to his car conveys. Victorious Ajax plies the routed crew, and first Doricles, Priam's son, he slew. On strong Pandocus' next inflict a wound, and lays Lysander bleeding on the ground. As when a torrent, swelled with wintry rains, pours from the mountains o'er the deluged plains, and pines and oaks, from their foundations torn, a country's ruins, to the seas are borne. Fierce Ajax thus o'erwhelms the yielding throng. Men, steeds, and chariots roll in heaps along. But Hector, from the scene of slaughter far, raged on the left, and ruled the tide of war. Loud groans proclaim his progress through plain, and deep Scamander swells with heaps of slain. There Nestor and Idomeneus oppose the warrior's fury. There the battle glows. There fierce on foot or from the chariot's height, his sword informs the beauteous ranks of fight. The spouse of Helen, dealing darts around, had pierced Machaon with a distant wound. In his right shoulder the broad shaft appeared, and trembling Greece for her physician feared. To Nestor then Idomeneus begun, "Glory of Greece, old Neleus' valiant son, ascend thy chariot, haste with speed away, and great Machaon to the ships convey. A wise physician skilled our wounds to heal is more than armies to the public weal." Old Nestor mounts the seat. Beside him rode the wounded offspring of the healing god. He lends a lash. The steeds with sounding feet shake the dry field and thunder toward the fleet. But now Cebriones, from Hector's car, surveyed the various fortune of the war. "While here," he cried, "the flying Greeks are slain, Trojans on Trojans yonder load the plain. Before great Ajax see the mingled throng of men, and chariots driven in heaps along. I know him well, distinguished o'er the field by the broad glittering of the sevenfold shield. Thither, O Hector, thither urge thy steeds, their danger calls, and there the combat bleeds. Their horse and foot in mingled deaths unite, and groans of slaughter mix with shouts of fight." Thus having spoke, the driver's lash resounds. Swift through the ranks the rapid chariot bounds. Stung by the stroke, the coursers scour the fields, o'er heaps of carcasses and hills of shields. The horses' hoofs are bathed in heroes' gore, and dashing, purple all the car before. The groaning axle sable drops to stills, and mangled carnage clogs the rapid wheels. Here Hector, plunging to the thickest fight, broke the dark phalanx and lent the light. By the long lance, the sword, or ponderous stone, the ranks he scattered, and the troops o'erthrown. Ajax he shuns through all the dire debate, and fears that arm whose force he felt so late. But partial Jove, espousing Hector's part, shot heaven-bred horror through the Grecian's heart. Confused, unnerved in Hector's presence grown, amazed he stood, with terrors not his own. O'er his broad back his moony shield he threw, and, glaring round, by tardy steps withdrew. Thus the grim lion his retreat maintains, beset with watchful dogs and shouting swains. Repulsed by numbers from the nightly stalls, though rage impels him, and though hunger calls, long stand the showering darts and missile fires. Then sourly slow the indignant beast retires. So turned stern Ajax, by a whole host repelled, while his swollen heart at every step rebelled. As the slow beast, with heavy strength endued, in some wide field by troops of boys pursued, though round his sides a wooden tempest rain, crops the tall harvest, and lays waste the plain. Thick on his hide the hollow blows resound, the patient animal maintains his ground, scarce in the field with all their efforts chased, and stirs but slowly when he stirs at last. On Ajax thus away the Trojans hung, the strokes redoubled on his buckler rung. Confiding now in bulky strength he stands, now turns and backward bears the yielding bands. Now stiff recedes, yet hardly seems to fly, and threats his followers with retorted eye. Fixed as a bar between two warring powers, while hissing darts descend in iron showers. In his broad buckler many a weapon stood, its surface bristled with quivering wood, and many a javelin, guiltless on the plain, marks the dry dust and thirst for blood in vain. But bold Eurypylus' aid imparts, and dauntless springs beneath a cloud of darts, whose eager javelin launched against the foe. Great Apisaon felt the fatal blow. From his torn liver the red current flowed, and his slack knees desert their dying load. The victor rushing to despoil the dead, from Paris' bow a vengeful arrow fled. Fixed in his nervous thigh the weapon stood. Fixed was the point, but broken was the wood. Back to the lines a wounded Greek retired, yet thus retreating his associates fired. "What god, O Grecians, has your hearts dismayed? Oh, turn arms, 'tis Ajax claims your aid. This hour he stands a mark of hostile rage, and this the last brave battle he shall wage. Haste, join your forces. From the gloomy grave the warrior rescue, and your country save." Thus urged the chief. A generous troop appears, who spread their bucklers and advance their spears to guard their wounded friend. While thus they stand with pious care, great Ajax joins the band. Each takes new courage at the hero's sight. The hero rallies and renews the fight. Thus rage both armies like conflicting fires, while Nestor's chariot far from fight retires. His courser steeped in sweat and stained with gore, the Greeks' preserver, great Machaon, bore. That hour Achilles, from the topmost height of his proud fleet, o'erlooked the fields of fight. His feasted eyes beheld around the plain the Grecian rout, the slaying and the slain. His friend Machaon, single from the rest, A transient pity touched his vengeful breast. Straight to Menoetius' much-loved son he sent. Graceful as Mars, Patroclus quits his tent. In evil hour, then fate decreed his doom, and fixed the date of all his woes to come. Why calls my friend? Thy loved injunctions lay. Whatever thy will, Patroclus shall obey. O first of friends, Pelides thus replied, still at my heart, and ever at my side, the time is come, when yon despairing host shall learn the value of the man they lost. Now at my knees the Greeks shall pour their moan, and proud Atrides tremble on his throne. Go now to Nestor, and from him be taught what wounded warrior late his chariot brought. For, seen at distance, and but seen behind, his form recalled Machaon to my mind. Nor could I, through yon cloud, discern his face, the coursers passed me with so swift a pace. The hero said, his friend obeyed with haste. Through intermingled ships and tents he passed. The chiefs descending from their car he found. The panting steeds Eurymedon unbound. The warriors standing on the breezy shore, to dry their sweat and wash away the gore. Here pause a moment, while the gentle gale conveyed that freshness the cool seas exhale. Then to consult on farther methods went, and took their seats beneath the shady tent. The draught prescribed, fair Hecamede prepares, Arsenus' daughter, graced with golden hairs, whom to his aged arms a royal slave Greece, as the prize of Nestor's wisdom gave. A table first with azure feet she placed, whose ample orb a brazen charger graced. Honey new pressed, the sacred flour wheat, and wholesome garlic, crowned a savory treat. Next her white hand an antique goblet brings, a goblet sacred to the Pylian kings from eldest times, embossed with studs of gold, 2 feet supported and 4 handles hold. On each bright handle, bending o'er the brink, in sculptured gold, 2 turtles seem to drink, a massy weight, yet heave with ease by him, when the brisk nectar overlooked the brim. Tempered in this, the nymph of form divine pours a large portion of the Pramnian wine. With goat's milk cheese a flavorous taste bestows, and last with flour the smiling surface strows. This to the wounded prince the dame prepares. The cordial beverage reverend Nestor shares. Salubrious draughts the warrior's thirst allay, and pleasing conference beguiles the day. Meantime Patroclus, by Achilles sent, unheard approached, and stood before the tent. Old Nestor, rising then, the hero led to his high seat. The chief refused and said, "'Tis now no season for these kind delays. The great Achilles with impatience stays. To great Achilles this respect I owe, who asks, what hero, wounded by the foe, was borne from combat by thy foaming steeds? With grief I see the great Machaon bleeds. This to report, my hasty course I bend. Thou know'st the fiery temper, my friend. Can then the sons of Greece, the sage rejoined, excite compassion in Achilles' mind? Seeks he the sorrows of our host to know? This is not half the story of our woe. Tell him, not great Machaon bleeds alone. Our bravest heroes in the navy groan, Ulysses, Agamemnon, Diomed, and stern Eurypylus, already bleed. But, what flattering hopes I entertain. Achilles heeds not, but derides our pain. Even till the flames consume our fleet he stays, and waits the rising of the fatal blaze. Chief after chief the raging foe destroys. Calm he looks on, and every death enjoys. Now the slow course of all impairing time unstrings my nerves, and ends my manly prime. Oh, had I still that strength my youth possessed, when this bold arm the Epean powers oppressed, the bulls of Elis in glad triumph led, and stretched the great Itymoneus dead. Then from my fury fled the trembling swains, and ours was all to plunder the plains. 50 white flocks, full 50 herds of swine, as many goats, as many lowing kine, and thrice the number of unrivaled steeds, all teeming females and of generous breeds. These, as my first essay of arms, I won. Old Neleus gloried in his conquering son. Thus Elis forced, her long arrears restored, and shares were parted to each Pylian lord. The state of Pyle was sunk to last despair, when the proud Eleans first commenced the war. For Neleus' sons Alcides rage had slain. Of 12 bold brothers, I alone remain. Oppressed, we armed, and now this conquest gained, my sire 300 chosen sheep obtained. That large reprisal he might justly claim, for prize defrauded and insulted fame, when Elis monarch at the public course detained his chariot and victorious horse. The rest the people shared, myself surveyed the just partition, and due victims paid. 3 days were past, when Elis rose to war, with many a courser and with many a car, the sons of Actor at their armies head, young as they were, the vengeful squadrons led. High on the rock fair Thrasus stands, our utmost frontier on the Pylian lands. Not far the streams of famed Alpheus flow, the stream they pass and pitch their tents below. Pallas, descending the shades of night, alarms the Pylians and commands a fight. Each burns for fame and swells with martial pride, myself the foremost, but my sire denied. Feared for my youth, exposed to stern alarms, and stopped my chariot and detained my arms. My sire denied in vain. On foot I fled amidst our chariots, for the goddess led. Along fair Erine's delightful plain, soft Mineus rolls his waters to main. There, horse and foot, the Pylian troops unite, and sheathe in arms, expect the dawning light. Thence, ere the sun advances noonday flame, to great Alpheus' sacred source we came. There first to Jove our solemn rites were paid. An untamed heifer pleased the blue-eyed maid. A bull Alpheus, and a bull was slain to the blue monarch of the watery main. In arms we slept beside the winding flood, while round the town the fierce Epeans stood. Soon as the sun, with all-revealing ray, flamed in the front of heaven and gave the day, bright scenes of arms and works of war appear. The nations meet, their Pilus, Elis here. The first who fell beneath my javelin bled. King Augea's son and spouse Agamede, she that all simple's healing virtues knew, and every herb that drinks the morning dew. I seized his car, the van of battle led. The Epeans saw, they trembled, and they fled. The foe dispersed, their bravest warrior killed. Fierce as the whirlwind now I swept the field. Full 50 captive chariots graced my train. 2 chiefs from each fell breathless to plain. Then Actor's sons had died, but Neptune shrouds the youthful heroes in a veil of clouds. O'er Hepes shields and o'er the prostrate throng, collecting spoils and slaughtering all along. Through wide Buprasian fields we forced the foes, where o'er the valleys the Olenian rocks arose, till Pallas stopped us where Elysium flows. Even there the hindmost of the rear I slay, and the same arm that led concludes the day. Then back to pile triumphant take my way. There to high Jove were public thanks assigned, as first of gods, to Nestor of mankind. Such then I was, impelled by youthful blood. So prove my valor for my country's good. Achilles with unactive fury glows, and gives to passion what to Greece he owes. How shall he grieve, when to the eternal shade her host shall sink, nor is the power to aid? O friend, my memory recalls the day, when, gathering aids along the Grecian sea, I and Ulysses touched at Thyia's port and entered Peleus' hospitable court. A bull to Jove he slew in sacrifice, and poured libations on the flaming thighs. Thyself, Achilles, and thy reverend sire Menoetius, turned the fragments on the fire. Achilles sees us, to the feast invites. So shall we sit and share the genial rites. We then explain the cause on which we came, urge you to arms, and found you fierce for fame. Your ancient fathers generous precepts gave. Peleus said only this, my son, be brave. Menoetius thus, though great Achilles shine in strength superior in a race divine, yet cooler thoughts thy elder years attend. Let thy just counsels aid and rule thy friend. Thus spoke your father at Thessalia's court. Words now forgot, though now of vast import. Ah, try the utmost a friend can say, such gentle force the fiercest minds obey. Some favoring god Achilles' heart may move. Though deaf to glory, he may yield to love. If some dire oracle his breast alarm, if aught from heaven withhold his saving arm, some beam of comfort yet on Greece may shine, if thou but lead the Myrmidonian line. Clad in Achilles' arms, if thou appear, proud Troy may tremble and desist from war. Pressed by fresh forces, her o'er-labored train shall seek their walls, and Greece respire again. This touched his generous heart, and from the tent along the shore with hasty strides he went. Soon as he came, where on the crowded strand the public mart and courts of justice stand, where the tall fleet of great Ulysses lies, and altars to the guardian gods arise. There sad, he met the brave Euaemon's son. Large painful drops from all his members run, an arrow's head yet rooted in his wound. The sable blood in circles marked the ground. As faintly reeling he confessed the smart. Weak was his pace, but dauntless was his heart. Divine compassion touched Patroclus' breast, who, Sighing, thus his bleeding friend addressed. Ah, hapless leaders of the Grecian host, thus must ye perish on a barbarous coast? Is this your fate, to glut the dogs with gore, far from your friends and from your native shore? Say, great Eurypylus, shall Greece yet stand? Resist she yet the raging Hector's hand? Or are her heroes doomed to die with shame, and this the period of our wars and fame? Eurypylus replies, No more, my friend, Greece is no more, this day her glories end. Even to the ships victorious Troy pursues, her force increasing as her toil renews. Those chiefs, that use her utmost rage to meet, lie pierced with wounds and bleeding in the fleet. But thou, Patroclus, act a friendly part, lead to my ships and draw this deadly dart. With lukewarm water wash the gore away, with healing balms a raging smart allay, such as sage Chiron, sire of pharmacy, once taught Achilles, and Achilles the of two famed surgeons. Podalirius stands this hour surrounded by the Trojan bands, and great Machaon, wounded in his tent, now wants that succor which so oft he lent. To him the chief, what then remains to do? The event of things the gods alone can view. Charged by Achilles' great command I fly, and bear with haste the Pylian king's reply. But thy distress this instant claims relief, he said, and in his arms upheld the chief. The slaves their master's slow approach surveyed, and hides of oxen on the floor displayed. There stretched at length the wounded hero lay. Patroclus cut the forky steel away. Then in his hands a bitter root he bruised. The wound he washed, the styptic juice infused. The closing flesh that instant ceased to glow, the wound to torture, and the blood to flow. Hercule, Book XII. Argument. The battle at the Grecian wall. The Greeks having retired into their entrenchments, Hector attempts to force them, but proving impossible to pass the ditch, Polydamas advises to quit their chariots and manage the attack on foot. The Trojans follow his counsel, and having divided their army into 5 bodies of foot, begin the assault. But upon the signal of an eagle with a serpent in his talons, which appeared on the left hand of the Trojans, Polydamas endeavors to withdraw them again. This Hector opposes and continues the attack, in which, after many actions, Sarpedon makes the first breach in the wall. Hector also, casting a stone of vast size, forces open one of the gates, and enters at the head of his troops, who victoriously pursue the Grecians even to their ships. While thus the hero's pious cares attend the cure and safety of his wounded friend, Trojans and Greeks with clashing shield engage, and mutual deaths are dealt with mutual rage. Nor long the trench or lofty walls oppose. With God diverse the ill-fated works arose. Their powers neglected and no victim slain. The walls were razed, the trenches sunk in vain. Without the gods, how short a period stands the proudest monument of mortal hands. This stood while Hector and Achilles rage, while sacred Troy the warring hosts engaged. But when her sons were slain, her city burned, and what survived of Greece to Greece returned. Then Neptune and Apollo shook the shore, then Ida's summits pour their watery store. Rhesus and Rhodius then unite their rills, Coresus roaring down the stony hills, Aesepus, Granicus, with mingled force, and Xanthus foaming from his fruitful source, and gulfy Samois, rolling to main helmets and shields end. Godlike heroes slain. These, turned by Phoebus in their wonted ways, deluge the rampire 9 continual days. The weight of waters saps the yielding wall, and to the sea the floating bulwarks fall. Incessant cataracts of thunder pours, and half the skies descend in sluicy showers. The god of ocean, marching stern before, with his huge trident wounds the trembling shore, vast stones and piles in their foundation heaves, and whelms the smoky ruin in the waves. Now smooth with sand and levelled by the flood, no fragment tells where once the wonder stood. In their old bounds the rivers roll again, shine twixt the hills, or wander o'er the plain. But this the gods in later times perform. As yet the bulwark stood and braved the storm. The strokes yet echoed of contending powers, war thunder at the gates and blood disdained the towers. Smote by the arm of Jove with dire dismay, close by their hollow ships the Grecians lay. Hector's approach in every wind they hear, and Hector's fury every moment fear. He, like a whirlwind, tossed the scattering throng, mingled the troops, and drove the field along. So midst the dogs and hunters' daring bands, fierce of his might, a boar or lion stands. Armed foes around a dreadful circle form, and hissing javelins rain an iron storm. His powers untamed, their bold assault defy, and where he turns a rout disperse or die. He foams, he glares, he bounds against them all, and if he falls, his courage makes him fall. With equal rage encompassed Hector glows, exhorts his armies in the trenches shows. The panting steeds impatient fury breathe, and snort and tremble at the gulf beneath. Just at the brink they neigh and paw the ground, and the turf trembles and the skies resound. Eager they viewed the prospect dark and deep, vast was a leap, and headlong hung the steep, the bottom bare, a formidable show, and bristled thick with sharpened stakes below. The foot alone the strong defense could force, and try the pass impervious to the horse. This saw Polydamas, who, wisely brave, restrained great Hector, and this counsel gave: O thou, bold leader of the Trojan bands, and you, confederate chiefs from foreign lands, what in trance here can cumbrous chariots find, the stakes beneath, the Grecian walls behind? No pass through those, without 1,000 wounds, no space for combat in yon narrow bounds. Proud of the favors mighty Jove has shown, on certain dangers we too rashly run. If 'tis as will our haughty foes to tame, O may this instant end the Grecian name. Here, far from Argos, let their heroes fall, and one great day destroy and bury all. But should they turn, and here oppress our train, what hopes, what methods of retreat remain? Wedged in the trench, by our own troops confused, in one promiscuous carnage crushed and bruised, all Troy must perish, if their arms prevail, nor shall a Trojan live to tell the tale. Hear then, you warriors, and obey with speed. Back from the trenches let your steeds be led. Then all alighting wedged in firm array, proceed on foot, and Hector lead the way. So Greece shall stoop before our conquering power, and this, if Jove consent, her fatal hour. Polydamas advising Hector this counsel pleased. The godlike Hector sprung swift from his seat, his clanging armor rung. The chief's example followed by his train. Each quits his car, and issues on the plain. By order strict the charioteers enjoin compel the coursers to their ranks behind. The forces part in 5 distinguished bands, and all obey their several chiefs' commands. The best and bravest in the first conspire, pan for the fight, and fret the fleet with fire. Great Hector glorious in the van of these Polydamas and brave Cebriones. Before the next the graceful Paris shines, and bold Alcathous and Agenor joins. The sons of Priam with the third appear, Deiphobus and Helena's the seer. In arms with these a mighty Asia stood, who drew from Hyrtacus his noble blood, and whom Arisba's yellow coursers bore. The coursers fed on Celes' winding shore. Antenor's sons the 4th battalion guide, and great Aeneas, born on Fountful-eyed. Divine Sarpedon the last band obeyed, whom Glaucus and Astropaeus aid. Next him, the bravest, at their army's head, but he more brave than all the hosts he led. Now, with compacted shields in close array, the moving legions speed their headlong way. Already in their hopes they fire the fleet, and see the Grecians gasping at their feet. While every Trojan thus, and every aid, the advice of wise Polydamas obeyed, Aegeus alone, confiding his car, his vaunted coursers urged to meet the war. Unhappy hero, and advise in vain. Those wheels returning ne'er shall mark the plain. No more those coursers with triumphant joy restore their master to the gates of Troy. Black death attends behind the Grecian wall, and great Idomeneus shall boast thy fall. Fierce to the left he drives, where from the plain the flying Grecians strove their ships to gain. Swift through the wall their horse and chariots pass, the gates half open to receive the last. Thither, exulting in his force, he flies. His following host with clamors rend the skies, to plunge the Grecians headlong in the main, such their proud hopes. But all their hopes were vain. To guard the gates, 2 mighty chiefs attend, who from the Lapis warlike race descend. This Polypides, great Perithous' heir, and that Leontius, like the god of war. As 2 tall oaks before the wall they rise, their roots in earth, their heads amidst the skies, whose spreading arms with leafy honors crowned, forbid the tempest and protect the ground. High on the hills appears their stately form, and their deep roots forever brave the storm. So graceful these, and so the shock they stand of raging Aegeus, and his furious band. Orestes Acamas in front appear, and Oenomaus and Thun close the rear. In vain their clamors shake the ambient fields, in vain around them beat their hollow shields. The fearless brothers on the Grecians call, to guard their navies and defend the wall. Even when they saw Troy's sable troops impend, and Greece tumultuous from her towers descend, forth from the portals rushed the intrepid pair, opposed their breasts, and stood themselves to war. So 2 wild boars spring furious from their den, roused with the cries of dogs and voice of men. On every side the crackling trees they tear, and root the shrubs, and lay the forest bare. They gnash their tusks, with fire their eyeballs roll, till some wide wound lets out their mighty soul. Around their heads a whistling javelin sung, with sounding strokes their brazen targets rung. Fierce was the fight, while yet the Grecian powers maintained the walls, and manned the lofty towers. To save their fleet their last efforts they try, and stones and darts in mingled tempest fly. As when sharp Boreas blows abroad, and brings the dreary winter on his frozen wings. Beneath the low-hung clouds the sheets of snow descend, and whiten all the fields below. So fast the darts on either army pour. So down the rampires rolls the rocky shower. Heavy and thick resound the battered shields, and the deaf echo rattles round the fields. With shame repulsed, with grief and fury driven, the frantic Aegis thus accuses heaven. In powers immortal who shall now believe? Can those 2 flatter, and can Jove deceive? What man could doubt but Troy's victorious power should humble Greece, and this her fatal hour? But like when wasps from hollow crannies drive, to guard the entrance of their common hive, darkening the rock, while with unwearied wings they strike the assailants, and infix their stings, a race determined that to death contend. So fierce these Greeks their last retreats defend. Gods! Shall 2 warriors only guard their gates, repel an army, and defraud the fates? These empty accents mingle with the wind, nor move great Jove's unalterable mind. To godlike Hector and his matchless might was owed the glory of the destined fight. Like deeds of arms through all the forts were tried, and all the gates sustained an equal tide. Through the long walls the stony showers were heard, the blaze of flames, the flash of arms appeared. The spirit of a god my breast inspire, to raise each act to life, and sing with fire. While Greece unconquered kept alive the war, secure of death, confiding in despair, and all her guardian gods, in deep dismay, with unassisting arms deplored the day. Even yet the dauntless Lapithae maintained the dreadful pass, and round them heaped the slain. First Damasus, by Polypides' steel, pierced through his helmet's brazen visor, fell. The weapon drank the mingled brains and gore. The warrior sinks, tremendous now no more. Next Ormenus and Pylon yield their breath, nor less Leontius strews the field with death. First through the belt of Pomachus he gored, then sudden wave his unresisted sword. Antiphates, as through the ranks he broke, the falchion struck, and fate pursued the stroke. Iamenus, Orestes, Menon bled, and round him rose a monument of dead. Meantime, the bravest of the Trojan crew, bold Hector and Polydamas, pursue, fierce with impatience on the works to fall, and wrap in rolling flames the fleet and wall. These on a farther bank now stood and gazed, by heaven alarmed, by prodigies amazed. A signal omen stopped the passing host, their martial fury in their wonder lost. Jove's bird on sounding pinions beat the skies, a bleeding serpent of enormous size, his talons trussed. Alive and curling round, he stung the bird, whose throat received the wound. Mad with the smart, he drops the fatal prey, in airy circles wings his painful way, floats on the winds, and rends the heaven with cries. Amidst a host of fallen serpent lies. They, pale with terror, mark its spires unrolled, and Jove's portent with beating hearts behold. Then first Polydamas the silence broke. Long wait the signal, and the Hector spoke. How oft, my brother, thy reproach I bear, for words well meant and sentiments sincere? True to those counsels which I judge the best, I tell the faithful dictates of my breast. To speak his thoughts is every freeman's right, in peace, in war, in council, and in fight, and all I move, deferring to thy sway, but tends to raise that power which I obey. Then hear my words, nor may my words be vain. Seek not this day the Grecian ships to gain. For sure, to warn us, Jove is omen sent, and thus my mind explains its clear event. The victor eagle, whose sinister flight retards our host, and fills our hearts with fright, dismiss his conquest in the middle skies, allowed to seize, but not possess the prize. Thus, though we gird with fires the Grecian fleet, though these proud bulwarks tumble at our feet, toils unforeseen and fiercer are decreed, more woes shall follow and more heroes bleed. So bode my soul, and bids me thus advise, for thus a skilful seer would read the skies. To him then Hector with disdain returned. Fierce as he spoke, his eyes with fury burned. Are these the faithful counsels of thy tongue? Thy will is partial, not thy reason wrong, or the purpose of thy heart thou vent. Sure heaven resumes the little sense it lent. What coward counsels would thy madness move against the word, the will revealed of Jove, the leading sign, the irrevocable nod, and happy thunders of the favoring God? These shall I slight, and guide my wavering mind by wandering birds that flit with every wind? Ye vagrants of the sky, your wings extend o'er the sun's arise, or where descend, to right, to left, unheeded take your way, while I the dictates of high heaven obey. Without a sign his sword the brave man draws, and asks no omen but his country's cause. But why shouldst thou suspect the war's success? None fears it more, as none promotes it less. Though all our chiefs amidst yon ships expire, trust thy own cowardice to escape their fire. Troy and her sons may find a general grave, but thou canst live, for thou canst be a slave. Yet should the fears that wary mind suggest spread their cold poison through our soldiers' breasts, my javelin can revenge so base a part, and free the soul that quivers in thy heart. Furious he spoke, and, rushing to the wall, calls on his host. His host obey the call, with ardor follow where their leader flies, redoubling clamors thunder in the skies. Jove breathes a whirlwind from the hills of Ide, and drifts of dust the clouded navy hide. He fills the Greeks with terror and dismay, and gives great Hector the predestined day. Strong in themselves, but stronger in his aid, close to the works their rigid siege they laid. In vain the mounds and massy beams defend, while these they undermine and those they rend. Upheave the piles that prop the solid wall, and heaps on heaps the smoky ruins fall. Greece on her ramparts stands of fierce alarms. The crowded bulwarks blaze with waving arms, shield touching shield, a long refulgent row, whence hissing darts, incessant, rain below. The bold Ajaces fly from tower to tower and rouse, with flame divine, the Grecian power. The generous impulse every Greek obeys. Threats urge the fearful, and the valiant praise. Fellows in arms, whose deeds are known to fame, and you, whose ardor hopes an equal name, since not alike endued with force or art, behold a day when each may act his part, a day to fire the brave and warm the cold, to gain new glories or augment the old. Urge those who stand and those who faint excite, drown Hector's vaunts and loud exhort to fight. Conquest, not safety, fill the thoughts of all. Seek not your fleet, but sally from the wall. So Jove once more may drive their routed train, and Troy lie trembling in her walls again. Their ardor kindles all the Grecian powers, and now the stones descend in heavier showers, as when high Jove his sharp artillery forms, and opes his cloudy magazine of storms. In winter's bleak uncomfortable rain, a snowy inundation hides the plain. He stills the winds and bids the skies to sleep, then pours the silent tempest thick and deep. And first the mountain tops are covered o'er, then the green fields, and then the sandy shore. Bent with the weight, the nodding woods are seen, and one bright waste hides all the works of men. The circling seas, alone absorbing all, drink the dissolving fleeces as they fall. So from each side increase the stony rain, and the white ruin rises o'er the plain. Thus godlike Hector and his troops contend to force the ramparts, and the gates to rend. Nor Troy could conquer, nor the Greeks would yield, till great Sarpedon towered amid the field. For mighty Jove inspired with martial flame his matchless son, and urge him on to fame. In arms he shines, conspicuous from afar, and bears aloft his ample shield in air, within whose o'er the thick bull hides were rolled, ponderous with brass, and bound with ductile gold. And while two-pointed javelins arm his hands, majestic moves along and leads his Lycian bands. So, pressed with hunger, from the mountain's brow descends a lion on the flocks below. So stalks the lordly savage o'er the plain, in sullen majesty and stern disdain. In vain loud mastiffs bay him from afar, and shepherds gall him in iron war. Regardless, furious, he pursues his way. He foams, he roars, he rends the panting prey. Resolved alike, divine Sarpedon glows with generous rage that drives him on the foes. He views the towers and meditates their fall. To sure destruction dooms the aspiring wall. Then casting on his friend an ardent look, fired with a thirst of glory, thus he spoke. Why, boast we, Glaucus, our extended reign, where Xanthus streams enrich the Lycian plain, our numerous herds that range the fruitful field, and hills where vines their purple harvest yield, our foaming bowls with pure nectar crowned, our feasts enhanced with music's sprightly sound? Why on those shores are we with joy surveyed, admired as heroes, and as gods obeyed, unless great acts superior merit prove, and vindicate the bounteous powers above? 'Tis ours, the dignity they give to grace, the first in valor, as the first in place, that when with wondering eyes our martial bands behold our deeds transcending our commands, such, they may cry, deserve the sovereign state, whom those that envy dare not imitate. Could all our care elude the gloomy grave, which claims no less the fearful and the brave, for lust of fame I should not vainly dare in fighting fields, nor urge thy soul to war. But since, alas, ignoble age must come, disease and death's inexorable doom, the life, which others pay, let us bestow, and give to fame what we to nature owe. Brave though we fall, and honored if we live, or let us glory gain, or glory give, he said. His words the listening chief inspire with equal warmth, and rouse the warrior's fire. The troops pursue their leaders with delight, rush to the foe, and claim the promised fight. Menesthius from on high the storm beheld threatening the fort, and blackening in the field. Around the walls he gazed, to view from far what aid appeared to avert the approaching war, and saw where Teucer with the adjacent stood, a fight insatiate, prodigal of blood. In vain he calls. The din of helms and shields rings the skies, and echoes through the fields. The brazen hinges fly. The walls resound, heaven trembles, roar the mountains, thunders all the ground. Then thus to those, "Hence with speed," he said, and urged the bold adjacents to our aid. Their strength united best may help to bear the bloody labors of the doubtful war. Hither the Lycian princes bend their course, the best and bravest of the hostile force. But if too fiercely do the foes contend, let Telamon, at least, our towers defend, and Teucer haste with his unerring bow to share the danger and repel the foe. Swift at the word, the herald speeds along the lofty ramparts, through the martial throng, and finds the heroes bathed in sweat and gore, opposed in combat on the dusty shore. Ye valiant leaders of our warlike bands, your aid, Cedos, piteous son demands. Your strength united best may help to bear the bloody labors of the doubtful war. Thither the Lycian princes bend their course, the best and bravest of the hostile force. But if too fiercely here the foes contend, at least, let Telamon those towers defend, and Teucer haste with his unerring bow to share the danger and repel the foe. Straight to the fort great Ajax turned his care, and thus bespoke his brothers of the war. Now, valiant Lycomede, exert your might, and brave Oileus, prove your force in fight. To you I trust the fortune of the field, till by this arm the foe shall be repelled. That done, expect me to complete the day. Then with his sevenfold shield he strode away. With equal steps bold Teucer pressed ashore, whose fatal bout the strong Pandion bore. High on the walls appeared the Lycian powers, like some black tempest gathering round the towers. The Greeks, oppressed, their utmost force unite, prepare to labor in the unequal fight. The war renews, mixed shouts and groans arise. Tumultuous clamor mounts and thickens in the skies. Fierce Ajax first the advancing host invades, and sends a brave Epicles of shades, Sarpedon's friend. Across the warrior's way, rent from the walls, a rocky fragment lay. In modern ages not the strongest swain could heave the unwieldy burden from the plain. He poised and swung it round, then tossed on high. It flew with force and labored up the sky, full on the Lycian's helmet thundering down. The ponderous ruin crushed his battered crown. As skillful divers from some airy steep headlong descend, and shoot into the deep, so falls Epicles. Then in groans expires, and murmuring to the shades the soul retires. While to the ramparts daring Glaucus drew, from Teucer's hand a winged arrow flew. The bearded shaft a destined passage found, and on his naked arm inflict a wound. The chief, who feared some foe's insulting boast might stop the progress of his warlike host, concealed the wound, and, leaping from his height, retired reluctant from the unfinished fight. Divine Sarpedon with regret beheld disabled Glaucus slowly quit the field. His beating breast with generous ardor glows. He springs to fight, and flies upon the foes. Alcmaeon first was doomed his force to feel. Deep in his breast he plunged a pointed steel. Then from the yawning wound with fury tore the spear. Pursued by gushing streams of gore, down sinks the warrior with thundering sound. His brazen armor rings against the ground. Swift of battlement the victor flies, tugs with full force, and every nerve applies. It shakes. The ponderous stones disjointed yield. The rolling ruins smoke along the field. A mighty breach appears. The walls lie bare, and like a deluge rushes in a war. At once bold Teucer draws the twanging bow, and Ajax sends his javelin at the foe. Fixed in his belt the feathered weapon stood, and through his buckler drove the trembling wood. But Jove was present in the dire debate, to shield his offspring and avert his fate. The prince gave back, not meditating flight, but urging vengeance and severer fight, then raised with hope and fire with glory's charms, his feigning squadrons to new fury warms. Oh, where ye Lycians is the strength you boast, your former fame and ancient virtue lost. The breach lies open, but your chief in vain attempt alone the guarded pass to gain. Unite, and soon the hostile fleet shall fall. The force of powerful union conquers all. This just rebuke inflamed the Lycian crew. They join, they thicken, and the assault renew. Unmoved the embodied Greeks their fury dare, and fixed support the weight of all the war. Nor could the Greeks repel the Lycian powers, nor the bold Lycians force the Grecian towers. As on the confines of the adjoining grounds, two stubborn swains with blows dispute their bounds. They tug, they sweat, but neither gain nor yield 1 foot 1 inch of the contended field. Thus obstinate to death they fight, they fall. Nor these can keep, nor those can win the wall. Their manly breasts are pierced with many a wound. Loud strokes are heard, and rattling arms resound. The copious slaughter covers all the shore, and the high ramparts drip with human gore. As when 2 scales are charged with doubtful loads, from side to side the trembling balance nods, while some laborious matron just and poor, with nice exactness weighs her woolly store, till poised aloft, the resting beam suspends each equal weight, nor this nor that descends. So stood the war till Hector's matchless might, with fates prevailing, turned the scale of fight. Fierce as a whirlwind up the walls he flies, and fires his host with loud repeated cries. Advance, ye Trojans! Lend your valiant hands, haste the fleet, and toss the blazing brands. They hear, they run, and, gathering at his call, raise scaling engines and ascend the wall. Around the works of wood a glittering spear shoots up, and all the rising host appears. A ponderous stone bold Hector heaved to throw, pointed above and rough and gross below. Not 2 strong men the enormous weight could raise, such men as live in these degenerate days. Yet this, as easy as a swain could bear the snowy fleece, he tossed and shook in air, for Jove upheld and lightened of its load the unwieldy rock, the labor of a god. Thus armed, before the folded gates he came, of massy substance and stupendous frame, with iron bars and brazen hinges strong, on lofty beams of solid timber hung. Then thundering to the planks with forceful sway, drives the sharp rock. The solid beams give way, the folds are shattered. From the crackling door leap the resounding bars, the flying hinges roar. Now rushing in, the furious chief appears, gloomy as night, and shakes 2 shining spears. A dreadful gleam from his bright armor came, and from his eyeballs flashed the living flame. He moves a god, resistless in his course, and seems a match for more than mortal force. Then pouring after, through the gaping space, a tide of Trojans flows and fills the place. The Greeks behold, they tremble, and they fly. The shore is heaped with death, and tumult rends the sky. Greek Alta,